Degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The situation.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
What are they saying? How are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyan.
Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because
Monday morning traffic looks like it's not going to be too much of a thing, at least not for now on this side of 6:30. We'll take a look and see how Monday is going to pan out. For now, it's building up on the Thika Superhighway coming into the CBD. Nothing too crazy at the moment. We're likely to see a pickup of that. After a weekend, usually traffic on Monday is quite the thing. Coming out of Westlands, a little bit of traffic on Waiaki Way, getting into the CBD via Westlands. It looks okay on the Southern Bypass. There's an option for you to get into the city much quicker for folks who are coming from this other side of things. Joggo Road is also building up a little bit here and there. But again, nothing alarming at the moment. Looks like we're starting off Monday morning just right. Keep an eye on things and see how it pans out. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
SpiceFM, Nyeri. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Indeed it is.
This is The Situation Room, the only way.
Welcome to Monday. It is March 6th. And here we are getting into the first full week of the third month of the year 2023. How you doing? Hope everything is all right with you on your neck of the woods. Kenya's biggest conversation starts now. Good morning, CT.
Good morning, Ndu.
How are you?
Fine.
We're singing our statements this morning, aren't we?
Yes.
Fantastic.
How are you doing, Ndu?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
You okay? You're O and K.
I'm O and K.
It is good to be O and K.
It's good to be O and K.
Weekend quiet. Good. The weekend should be quiet.
It should be. Not jumping up and down and doing O and B and closing everywhere.
Actually, that's what you want to do. By all means, then anticipate a very tired Monday morning. You'll be exhausted. Yes. And
how are you, sir?
You'll be wondering what hit you on the weekend.
Oh, right.
Hello. How are you? Are you well?
I'm fine, thank you.
Uko salama kabisa?
Yes, sir.
Leo tarehe ngapi?
6th March.
Leo ni Mosala leo. You can't say days today. Between 1 and 6 and 7. Don't say them. Don't say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Some people will wake up badly. With a start.
It's going to be an interesting morning, that's for sure.
All Man United fans will be no, it's just the date.
It's just the date. Tomorrow is 7th. It's not a big deal. The day after that is 8th. What are we on about? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, losing is normal. You lose every day by 7 goals. Hey.
It was an interesting one.
Hey, dangerful.
Dangerful.
Completely. Bad. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Conversation. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. Several conversations to have. Number one, there is a member of parliament for Pokot South constituency who's also the chairman of the Public Investments Committee on Energy Affairs, Economic and Energy Affairs. He will be joining us at 7 a.m. His name is David Kosing. They held a sitting last week as the Committee on Energy Affairs, and they were discussing several things. The cost of electricity in the country, the cost of energy. Remember, the cabinet met on Tuesday, and among the things that they agreed is that they are going to lift the moratorium on signing new power purchase agreements with independent power producers for Kenya Power. So more IPPs are going to come online, and they will sign deals with Kenya Power and the nature of deals. Anyway, on top of that, there's the whole cost of electricity, the whole cost of fuel. David Kosing is going to come and tell us. We have heard also conversations that, the energy CS, David Churchill, is already making negotiations with the UAE for importation of a certain quota of fuel into the country. All those things. You want to understand that. Plus, of course, don't forget, David Kosing is the MP for Pokot South, where the ongoing security operation is in high gear. So he'll come and also give us an update from what he's hearing from his constituents. 8 o'clock, Kenyan politicians getting addicted to endless partisan politics. Is that at the expense of governance, or is it not? Are we politicking and not doing the work that we should be doing? That's what politicians should be asking themselves. And a seasoned politician and a former cabinet secretary and a former UDO official who then crossed over into Azimio, Kipruto Arap Kirwa, will be joining us at 8 o'clock for that discussion. Higher. There was that story in the Business Daily on Friday about dollar shortage. Remember? And, over the weekend, people have just been having their conversation. So, if we actually seeing the shilling losing ground, even against the Uganda shilling, even against the Tanzanian currency and the other major currencies, what is the impact of that on Kenya's economy? An economist, Odhiambo Ramogi, joins us at 9 a.m. to discuss that. Keep it here for that and more. Tell us about COVID.
680,677,987. Those are the global numbers that we're looking at for COVID today. Let's look specifically at Kenya and the most recent numbers that we see so far. On this time, again, looking at low numbers, 7 new cases was it a week ago. And we're still looking at low reporting, as well as low case acknowledgement in terms of what's happening in Kenya. Again, so we're looking at COVID starting to become a thing of the past, if that's the narrative that we're following. All right, countries begin negotiations on global agreement to protect the world from future pandemic emergencies. This one caught the world flat-footed in terms of preparations, in terms of treatment, vaccination, just general, pandemic preparedness. So countries of the World Health Organization have begun negotiations on a global accord on pandemic prevention, preparedness and response using the Zero Draft as a basis for negotiating an agreement to protect nations and communities from future pandemic emergencies. So Friday, discussions on the draft pandemic accord took place during the week-long fourth meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body known as the INB, which includes 194 WHO countries. The negotiations on the draft will continue, over the next year, according to a timetable laid out by the World Health Assembly. So Mr. Roland Dries, who's the co-chair, said at the start of negotiations, or rather of discussions of concrete language for the World Health Organization Pandemic Accord, sends a clear signal that countries of the world want to work together for a safer, healthier future where we are better prepared for and able to prevent future pandemics, threats, and respond to them effectively and equitably. It is clear that it was the COVID conversation that kind of catapulted this agreement to come into place. And it is clear that the world does not want to be caught flat-footed again. According to the World Health Organization, they want to make sure that there's equity and equality when it comes to this preparedness, a lot of which we did not see with COVID when it came to vaccines and stockpiles and all of this, for when the world's richest countries were pitted against the world's poorest countries when it came to vaccine equity. So they're saying, look, in the future, let's make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and that we don't get caught in the manner in which COVID has caught us. So it'll be interesting to see over the next year how they go about these discussions. That's what it looks like for COVID this morning.
Even huh? Okay, so how is it looking like on your end? Let's know where you're tuned in from. SpiceFM KE on Facebook and Twitter. Just text us and send us a message on our social media handles. Just go there and post a comment. And after we take a look at the weather forecast, we will acknowledge your presence. 18 minutes after 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aye, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
What are they
How
saying?
are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes. My name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of God.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Clear conditions at 18 in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15. It's 15 and partly cloudy. Looking into Nakuru, highs of 31 today. And we'll see highs of 27 in a clear Nyeri currently at 11. It's 14 and clear in Eldoret, highs of 28 and lows of 13. And at 25, Mombasa is partly cloudy this Monday, highs of 32. And we'll see highs of 31 in a cloudy Malindi at 26. 19 and clear in Kisumu, highs of 32 and lows of 19. We'll see lows of 15 in Kakamega, where it's currently 15 and clear at the moment. Mostly clear conditions at 18 in Kampala, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam, where it's cloudy at 27. It's 16 and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 27. And 28 will be the high, rather 33 will be the high in Lagos, where it's currently cloudy at 28. Looking into Beijing, warming up significantly, a hazy sky at 15, highs of 22. And down to lows of 2. It's 4 degrees and cloudy in Paris with highs of 8. We'll see highs of 8 as well in a cloudy London at 3. New York, a Sunday night is cloudy at 7, highs of 13 and lows of 3.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
He's online this morning. Alhaji, we see you tuning in from Mombasa. Willie Okware says he's tuned in as well. Good morning to you. Atieno says tuned in from Nyahera, Kisumu. Locked loud and clear. Everyone have a successful week. We'll say amen to that really early. Hope we do. Peter Wakigumo says he's present, and Samuel is also here with us today. Helen Nyakianda Njokuna says good morning. Ondicho is tuned in from Wingi. Good morning to you too, Helen. Yes, we do see you. Dennis Lagat is tuned in from Kericho. Machakos is where Robert Kahindi is. And Sami Ndunda tuned in this morning as well. Pato, good morning, tuned in from Moranga. And Bewa Macha, good morning, tuned in from Machakos. Kaptarakwa from Elgeyo Marakwet County. That's where Mwalimu Dominic Cheriot is tuned in this morning. And Joseph is also present. Chris, good morning to you, tuned from Gong. And Shalom Mukhalama is tuned in as well. Tinderet, 102.5. You're getting us loud and clear. Jonathan is there. Robert Mbogo says good morning, tuned in from Mombasa. Good morning, friends. Good morning, friend. Already tuned to the best of the best. Simon, good morning. How is Magarini this morning? Kakamega is cold. Okay, Zachary. Now, your cold is 15 degrees. 33 will be your high today. So don't even worry about that because you'll get to significantly warmer temperatures. Okay? The young Semboja is tuned in this morning, tuned in from Mombasa. And he said, Salamu zimfikie Ednah. Ednah. Ndizo. Salamu. Mfika. Thank you very much. Monis Janeth. Good morning, CT Muga. He does like this.
Okay.
No.
I receive the
like
greetings.
This is like how?
Thank you. And I also greet him like this.
What's that?
Tips love.
People who can, there are people who are not seeing what you're saying.
It's heart, a shape of a heart. So there to you to pewa kila mtu.
Amekupatia roho yake yote.
Mapenzi, is that how you say? Kila mtu mapenzi, hivyo. Okay. Vivian Odawa says, good morning, CT, Indu and Eric, have a blessed day. To you too, my sister. Waterman Jeffrey tuned in from Minneapolis. Everybody just suddenly appeared from nowhere. Okay, I see all of you. Good morning, guys. Tuning from Mombasa, Rongai. That's what CK says. Tuned in my radio Trinity. Tuned in online, ready and waiting. Jojo Mugele, we see you. Eddie Odwo are you in Koru this morning? Good morning to you. He said, it looks like the government has lost its priority. One would assume in order to lose
Which
something,
one?
you should have it. But okay. Now they have gone personal and want to settle scores with private business. Now so. Tuning from Gigiri, Eric, Ten Hag was found to be the real hot air after Liverpool opened the service. Continue talking badly. Abdallah Abdi Kadir is tuned in this morning with us, and Henry Malumo is also. Look, everybody's here. All of you, just welcome. No.
Ten Hag has been relegated from 10 to 7. He's now 7 Hag.
Okay. So.
City, the day's proverb, please. Where are we going this week?
We're in Rwanda.
Rwanda.
The land of 1,000 hills, Mille Collines.
Yes. The beautiful, beautiful country of Rwanda. In a court of fowls, a cockroach never wins his case.
In a what?
In a court of fowls, court, Kotini, a cockroach never wins his case.
In a court of fowls, a cockroach is lunch. Okay, sorry.
You know, this particular proverb actually tickled me somewhat. Because the cockroach is male.
What?
The cockroach is male.
How do you know?
His case.
Oh, his.
You know where then the fowl would be?
Yep.
In the eyes of a fowl, you're always cockroach.
And you can't win your case.
You can't win your case.
Your food.
All right, let's look at the newspaper headlines.
All right, let's do it. On the front page of the Standard this morning, it's interesting. Matiang'i flies back to DCI EACC storm. Okay. There's an alarm as drying rivers leave thousands with no livelihoods. I mean, it's just really crazy pictures here that we are seeing of a dry river in Kerio Valley, Elgeyo Marakwet County. Another dry one, Maina Munene at a river with little water owing to dry water and illegal diversions. Okay. Animals at a dry riverbed in Magadi in Kajiado County. It's actually quite sad to see. Government said they're going to name officials who stole billions 3 months towards the end of the last administration. This should be interesting. He said in the next few days. So few days is like Wednesday like this. So we'll wait and see. Safaricom board silence as CEO's term nears end. Okay. Let's see what happens with that. That's on the front pages. A probe on the sex for work in tea estate stalls. We'll find out about that in a minute. On the front page of The Nation, where to find a job. KNBS data says they could also be helpful. So there's some help if you're looking for a job this morning, and The Nation splashed that on the front page. Audit unveils 34 billion shilling fuel subsidy scandal. Another scandal, and it involves 34 billion. Okay. Costly loans loom as interbank rate at a 38-month high. Okay. 15 months, money said to have been lost 15 months before the August 9th general election. Money is just lost in everywhere. Okay.
15 months before.
I'll tell you that. Just know, a year plus. Okay. The Kenya National Union of Teachers wants extra pay for members in JSS. How about you get them in teaching first before you ask for extra pay? But that's just me. That's what's on the front pages of those two papers.
Okay, let me tell you what's on the front page of the Business Daily. CBK freezes top bank's bid to increase borrowing rates. The central bank has frozen a push by big banks to raise the cost of loans for borrowers presenting higher credit risks. That is drawing protests from the lenders. The regulator had asked the banks to submit new loan pricing formulas that would be the basis of setting interest rates in an environment where the government stopped controlling loan costs. However, 5 years after they submitted 3 years after they submitted their applications, the CBK has just been quiet. These banks are Cooperative Bank, NCBA, KCB, Diamond Trust, Standard Chartered and I&M. They represent about half of all loans in the market. They presented their proposals. The CBK has been looking at those proposals and saying, thank you for submitting them.
We'll get back to
Sujali to talk. We don't call us, we'll call you. Other headline is about a Moi-era contractor who has lost 3 billion shilling claim for compensation from the government. Because of why? Because they entered into a verbal contract.
Oh no.
Companies called Kabuito Contractors, they claim that they were given the job to recarpet Nairobi roads. Okay? In 1997. They did the recarpeting of Nairobi roads, so they claim. And so they went to tell the government, so you've done the roads, you bring the money. You did what? Did the roads. Huh? Yeah, bring the money. Huh? So they went to court.
Which roads?
The Court of Appeal has now said, wait a minute. So what kind of contract are we talking about? Now we know we were called by the then PS for local government, and he told us, you guys, you do the roads. So we did the roads. So do you have any contract? He called us, and it was Serikali calling you. We did the roads. Do you have any paperwork that shows that you got somebody to come and show that you have actually done the road? Because that's what the government was opposing. They were saying, we don't have any contracts or anything that shows that any job was done. So they... Court of Appeal judges Hannah Okwengu, Mohammed Wasame and John Mativo said, boss, at least you should even have come here and called that PS that you're saying. He should have come here to be a witness in this case. You don't have a PS.
Even on a tissue paper, you didn't write anything.
Nothing. And then you're saying you own 3 billion shillings. Itakuwa ngumu kidogo, my friend. It'll be hard small. Tika headlines. Delarue has said at the end of this month they are stopping to do things for Kenya, right? Ooh. And that includes many banks who are using them to print their checkbooks. So banks have actually been writing to their customers saying, we're going to have an issue of checkbook shortages, so make your application now so that we can just get your checkbooks done. Now, local banks are looking for local firms to fill the vacuum that will be left by Delarue. So local printing companies are actually now getting the job.
However?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no however.
There has to be a however.
However what?
There's a little security element.
See, they also have.
Really?
Connie Delarue has a monopoly of security.
They had.
They didn't.
Yes, they did.
They didn't.
Yes, they did.
Which security?
Which security do these other institutions that you speak of have? How many other printing organizations in this country print checkbooks?
Which security are you talking about?
Every checkbook has security features. Now, those security features are what I'm referring to as security. So when you print a checkbook or you are given that particular tender, then you meet those standards. I'm putting it as simply as I possibly can.
All right.
And it isn't free for all, like printing flyers, that everybody can print flyers.
Of course it isn't.
Yes.
And you don't expect that local banks are going to every local printer and saying, photocopy a checkbook.
Actually,
they are meeting some certain standards as well.
What I'm going at is not even that. The moment you say it is a free for all, because that's what we are saying, I will then ask the question, who are these printers who have been given this particular duty? Who? Because the who is important. What's their capacity? It's like saying, in my mind, that the fiduciary issue, these banknotes that we have, that Delarue says they're not printing the notes. And we say, no, the other people can print these things. They could, and they can. But the thing is, there are very strict requirements for each, whether it is the banknote, whether it is the checkbook.
That's okay, CT.
Yes.
And all those things that you're talking about are fine. Delarue cannot have had a monopoly of doing those things.
Who else prints
They
checkbooks?
must have. They enjoyed this for a long time.
But I said they had a monopoly.
Okay, they enjoyed this for a long time.
Yes.
They got the contract from the Central Bank of Kenya.
Yes.
Because of getting the contract from the Central Bank of Kenya, they also then got the contract
But
from
who else
many
prints
banks.
checkbooks in this country?
Nobody else has been printing checkbooks in this country. That doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to print checkbooks in this country. Local firms are filling the gap left by Delarue. This is a story.
Right. People will be printing their own checkbooks.
Yes.
And then we'll see how that goes.
They just had the first mover advantage because they were here earlier. we're going to develop our local capacity to do this thing. Yeah. Kama utaki loan sa checkbook ni sawa.
Checkbook is just that, a piece of paper that's supposed to be a promissory note.
Let them close or pay the tax or whatever. Mauritian company has bought out a company called Rongai Transport. Remember Rongai Transport?
Yes.
Now it's been bought out by a company from Mauritius, a multinational company from Mauritius. What's the headline in the Star?
In the Star, the headline, on the right-hand corner in green, mass action. Raila lines up more rallies as protest deadline ends Wednesday. This Wednesday. The story is on page 7. Okay. On headline, bang in the middle, Ruto merger plan. Why Musalia and Weta are jittery. ANC rebuffs UDA overtures saying party won't merge now or any time in the future. All right, then below there's a picture of the Deputy President and the Governor of Nairobi and a gentleman in the back who probably is a security officer. Gachagua takes 24 billion scandal to Uhuru's doorstep. Okay? This story is on page 6. Then on the left-hand side of the front page, faith diplomacy. First Lady to lead prayers against LGBTQ attack on family institution. Below, agency, now this is a global fund, demands funds of stolen 40 million HIV cash. Meaning money was given to government, money was given to NASCOP. Somehow the money, in an audit, the money didn't do what it was supposed to do. So they want their money back.
Kakunywa maji.
Yes. Then Voices, Simon Mwangi. This one, page 16. Don't be fooled. Bangi is bad for you. They've written bang, but I feel if you say bang, it makes more sense. Bangi is...
It feels nini.
Yeah, it feels like you're saying the thing. Bangi is bad for you.
Don't be fooled.
Don't be fooled.
Okay. 25 minutes to 7. Don't be fooled.
Bangi is bad.
Fly better with Emirates. If you're thinking of flying first class business, fly better with Emirates. You get the best treatment that anyone could ask for your trip wherever you're going. Let's take a look at traffic. Yeah? Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
London Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's sugar and spice. Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been in? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to SpiceFM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody else.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we looking at now in terms of traffic at a few minutes after 6:30? A little bit of it has built up here and there on the Thika Superhighway. Getting into the CBD, it's going to be bumper to bumper for some time, but it'll move. And also the service lanes are not looking too bad right about now. On Jogo Road, getting into the city, you'll be fine as you go via Landis Road and end through towards Haile Selassie. Coming out of Westland, some traffic starting to build up. We will see James Gishuru do that thing again. And also then coming in from Ring Road, Westlands will look pretty busy as well. Limuru Road is busy. Let's look at the Northern Bypass. Coming in then towards Kiambu Road. Kiambu Road, then you're seeing some traffic right around the DCI headquarters heading out towards Muthaiga Square. But beyond that, nothing too crazy. On the Eastern Bypass, some traffic. It's outbound towards the AP Training College Junction. And we'll see some traffic there going out in the general direction of the Thika Superhighway. So, okay, there it is. Monday morning for you. We're getting into traffic hour not too far from now. Let's know what's going on where you are so we can keep folks abreast of these Nairobi streets. Twitter, SpiceFM KE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay. So, David Mwere in The Nation today tells a story of individuals. And he says, these individuals are in President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. Okay? And he said that it has emerged that the government may have lost 34 billion shillings in 15 months before the August 9th general election. Sawa. And this was under the fuel pump price stabilization program. So it was to be able to make fuel not so expensive for Kenyans. At the end of the day, that's what we're looking at. But it would appear as though there are some folks who got their hands in the cookie jar and now might be getting a slap on the wrist. The possible loss, which has been exposed by Auditor General Nancy Gathungu in a special audit report to Parliament, includes 554.72 million overpaid. So now, not paid over to people, overpaid, yani paid in excess to 11 oil marketing companies. Okay, follow me so far? The 34 billion shillings, according to fiscal analysts at the Parliamentary Budget Office, is enough to construct, get this, 3,400 boreholes, complete with all the fittings, or build 6,800 fully equipped laboratories in secondary schools, or 17,000 fully equipped classrooms. This particular money was overpaid to 11 oil marketing firms. The amount was meant to stabilize fuel prices, to cushion Kenyans against price hikes driven by fluctuation in global oil prices, but may have ended up in the pockets of a few individuals. Now, that word may is very interesting here. The special audit covered the period April 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and has flagged various avenues through which the public funds may have been stolen, either by commission or omission by government officers. Okay, how it could be omission would be interesting, wouldn't you say? They include irregular utilization of 22.68 billion shillings from the Petroleum Development Levy Fund, overpayment of OMCs, and irregular advance sales stabilization compensation of 33 billion shillings. I beg your pardon, of 5.32 billion shillings. Also flagged are irregular demurrage charges of 3.2 billion passed to the consumers through high pump prices and 2.2 billion in irregular administrative costs. So they're saying these numbers just don't add up, and it may then have ended up in people's pockets.
Okay. Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. My issue is, I really wish that there was somebody who acted upon these reports. These reports, 33 billion missing here, some odd billion missing here, and it's just like, okay, it was missing, so moving on to the next. But what happens thereafter?
These reports, are historical, huh?
This one not so much, because we're looking at, we were told...
An audit is after the fact.
Exactly. It is.
The question is the auditor saying that, is the auditor basically just questioning the mode of payment, the documentation associated with it?
It's a combination.
Or is the auditor saying money lost?
Combination of, she's saying all of that. So she's saying that, yes, they cannot see the clear path between 1 and 2. What money was meant for didn't actually go, because people, number one, were still charged high fuel prices. So this money that was essentially, because that's what happens, that money is pumped into something in order for you to realize a subsidy, so that the end user now doesn't have to pay so much for it. But they still saw high prices, and they're saying, okay, so this money that was essentially released, where did it go?
Where did it go to?
And that's the question, where did it go? And then you can have a report, and then you can assume after the report. And this is the same thing that we're talking about. Prosecution also happens after the fact. In as much as an audit query happens after the fact, we understand. And then she takes you through and say, look, there are irregularities, there are questions that we have here, there are queries that we have here. But she cannot do beyond that. That's her job. To make a suggestion, but then there need to be the relevant arms who pick up and say, hold on a minute. Remember, we were told also by the previous Auditor General that, a lot of money disappears. But, their job is to report. My question is, who then takes on the next and says, this money that actually goes missing, and you look at the numbers and what it could actually do, who then should be responsible for making...
If money is lost in the counties, there is a committee in the Senate that's supposed to deal with such matters. It is their job to summon the relevant authorities. If it's at the national level, the National Assembly, It's not as though we do not have. They are committees. That's their job.
Yeah.
Yep.
They consume that report, make the relevant, ask the relevant individuals who are in charge of those dockets, come and give us your version.
So one must ask then, why do we not see a regular questioning of these reports that come up? Because the money we're talking about is not chicken change. We're talking about 34 billion shillings.
No. There is regular questioning. The problem is the backlog. The current
that's the next thing I was going to
PAC
say, so much.
is looking at we were discussing the other day. They're looking at 2019 reports.
We haven't gone to 2020.
By the time we get to this one of 2022, we are
Take a number,
talking about
man.
2027.
And that's what I was going to say, that there's so much in terms of, because in another 2 weeks or so, you'll see another report from the Auditor General, and yet another one, and another one, and another one. So do you have time to then go through all of that and make it relevant,
Actually,
in addition to doing the other things that you're supposed to be doing?
The question
This
I would
same
like
body
to
of
ask
parliament.
is, why don't they have the time? I mean, this time that we keep saying, there's a lot of work, there's no time. Which time? Is it something they consider a priority? And if they consider it a priority, are they telling us that they've pursued every avenue possible to provide due justice to these reports, and just they have not been able to move it forward? Is that what we're being told?
Yeah. Well,
No, we'll ask an MP who will be joining us at 7.
Yes.
David Kosing. Yep. Talking about money, a couple of years ago, the people from Finland and the government of Uasin Gishu County had a conversation with a certain trust. And this was with regards to airlifts to Finland for students coming from Uasin Gishu County to go and study in 3 universities in Finland. Now, some 202 students have been in Finland for the last year or so. And it appears that more than 100 of them who are in one particular university in a city called Tampere are going to be thrown back home, sent back home.
Why?
Kicked out of the country because they have not paid fees. So here's the deal. The deal was universities in Finland are offering admission to students to go and study various courses.
Admission?
Yes.
Okay.
Various courses, all of them linked to health. Okay. Now, those students make the application. Those that get the admission raise the fees. The fee is paid. The county government of Uasin Gishu comes in as a guarantor and says, yeah, we know these students, we know their parents, we are a guarantor. But the parents raise the fees and to send their children to the university. Now, it happens that those in Tampere University were required to start paying the fees for the second semester. They haven't paid. They haven't paid. So Tampere University is saying, people, sasa, see you pay, ama you go back. That is one university. The other university is also saying the same thing. Now, the governor of Uasin Gishu County was addressing the media yesterday and said, yeah, it's true, actually, this thing, we know about it. It was all here, and we knew how the students were going, but the county government is basically not involved in this particular issue. We were just acting as guarantors. So what we have to do is talk to the parents and tell them, parents, please pay fees for your children for second semester.
excuse me. May I ask a question? What was the agreement in the beginning?
Between who and who?
Between the schools and the students who are going to school. Was there understanding? Okay, let me ask a different question. The parents of these students today, do they believe that they're supposed to pay school fees for these students?
That's a question that is hanging somewhere.
Are they aware that school fees is needed?
That's a question that's hanging.
Did they have a different understanding as per how the school fees was going to be paid? Did they believe it was a scholarship?
That's where the questions come in.
Isn't it? Because that then could...
By the time the university is asking for payment, they expected payment. Yes.
And do we think that maybe these universities had not made this clear at the beginning of this whole agreement that actually it might be a scholarship, it might be a something?
No.
No?
No.
Bit of a pickle, wouldn't you say?
Several questions emerge, because by the time parents were raising that initial fee, they knew they were paying for something. Do they expect that they'll continue paying for, or do they expect that this was it? We just needed to pay this 100,000 shillings tumelipa pesa ya visa, pesa ya blah blah blah, pesa ya accommodation, and then the rest now our government has sent
Our
our
county-
children to.
county na support.
Why don't we take it back and ask who it is who led this initiative? When you say that there was an understanding, okay, we have an embassy of Finland in this particular country.
Yes.
And I'm sure there is likely to be a council who deals with matters of education, okay, whether it's cultural or whatever they call them. But in addition to that, there must have been someone from Wasingishu who led this. Who was this person?
The governor.
All right. What did the governor promise?
What
was it?
did the governor tell his people?
Yes, what did he tell his people was happening? Because the governor is a politician.
Yes.
Yes. So what did he tell his people? Because if we can get to that, then our understanding will be clearer. And then if our understanding is clearer, we'll understand where it is that the understanding dropped.
Yep. So now the governor and the current governor and the current deputy governor. The deputy governor is called Bararot. John Bararot. John Bararot, the deputy governor, said, the offer is not a scholarship, but parents have to meet the education fees for their children. The role of the county government was purely to act as guarantor. So now an ad hoc committee of the county assembly has been established to look into this matter. The county assembly is aware that the county executive has similar engagements with other countries like Canada, and we advise that those engagements be suspended until proper policy and framework is established. So it was not just Finland. Finland was a successful one. They went.
Successful in
There
that
are
they
others,
actually went.
Yeah, there are others. For example, there is Australia. There is talks with Canada. There is talks with this, getting your children to go and
Parents
study
were
there.
conned.
Wallahi. I think, and this is just from what you've said so far, parents had the idea or were given the impression that this is a scholarship and your children are going to read. Because it doesn't make sense to me that you don't know how your child will go and study, then you pony up your kids to just go like that, and you're hoping that you'll find something along the line. And how is it that this is across board for all of the students? How is it that the same narrative is that all of you have not paid school fees, so come and be going? No.
There's another angle to it. How much do the parents raise, and how much was a fee?
How much do the parents know?
How much the parents raise? Because that whole issue of scholarship may be one thing or the other, but maybe the parents actually raised the full amount that's required
And
for
gave
the
it to
entire
somebody.
program.
And gave it to somebody.
Yeah. How much was picked from parents? How much was remitted to the universities?
And if they pay, how much was who received money?
In the fullness of time, we will know the full story.
It will now emerge. You see, they are the verge of coming back home.
We will know. By the way, do you have any idea what loss in terms of numbers of livestock Kenya has endured during this period of drought?
No.
Take a guess. 2.6 million.
Oh my God.
Yes, my very, very thought.
Oh my
2.6 million heads of livestock.
Yes.
I was actually going to say hundreds of thousands.
No, 2.6.
And I am sure this is a conservative figure.
Yes, and
because we never have a proper figure of the census of the animals that we have.
Precisely. Now, this is, of course, now, if you talk about it, this particular story emanating from the Drought Management Authority, National Drought Management Authority, NDMA, okay? It said on Thursday, okay? Thursday as in last week. This is 5% of the animals that we actually have. But the area that they focused on were the areas of Marsabit and Kajiado. Now, 2.6
5% of what? Of the animals in the ASAL areas.
Yes, which totals, according to them, 52.8 million. But 2.6 million is a huge, massive.
And that's why I say that's a very, very, very conservative figure. You can't tell me that the ASAL areas have only lost 5% of their livestock.
Nope.
No.
They've lost more than that.
No. If you have
more than
if you have families
50%.
who, absolutely. When we were being told here, we had the desert, we had the drought conversation last week. You have families who've lost everything that they had, and it's not the tale of one family. Many have lost everything.
Many.
So
I know somebody who had more than 1,000 cows. Gone. All gone.
So this story, as you say correctly, speaking politely, is conservative.
It is. Wow.
And the disaster continues.
Bad one.
So The Kenya National Union of Teachers are saying the JSS teachers that you people are saying that we should send everywhere. We need you to give them a little bit more money because So, primary school teachers have been forced to step in to cover gap in junior high. That's the sub there. The Kenya National Union of Teachers will demand, not even cajole, for compensation for primary school teachers who have been assisting to teach in JSS since the recently recruited teachers are inadequate. Okay. It was supposed to be 35,000. I do not know how many we are at right now. But Collins OU yesterday said that thousands of their members are qualified to teach in JSS and have already been allocated lessons, and the TSC should compensate them. Because you can't just be using our people anyhow. We can't look at learners suffer. We can see that they need help here. It's been weeks and nothing is happening. So we also step in. However, don't just take us like that, Those with the necessary qualifications are teaching. And as a common labor practice, there should be additional pay for what? Additional labor. In February, TSC had hired and deployed 10,000 teachers. They were supposed to do 35,000. So, we're waiting. 20,000 interns, but with more than 23,000 public schools, most institutions. Guess how many they received? Of those who had been hired, most institutions received one extra teacher. One. Moja. And they were receiving an influx of over 1,000 new students. In addition to the ones that you had before, after we said that now they'll be domiciled in primary schools. Follow me so far? Now, the Kenya Primary School Heads Association chairperson Johnson Zioka said that learning is going on despite the staffing challenges. We're stumbling along. We'll get to the summit at some point. They said they've engaged the qualified teachers, the qualified ones, and most of the books have now been delivered. However, the capitation funds that were promised have not been disbursed. 9.6 billion shillings, if I'm not wrong. For primary school teachers, we received 20% of the 50% allocation for the first term. We don't have money to buy instructional materials and for the general purpose of running the school. So basically, we have what? We have nothing. OU revealed that the Kenya National Union of Teachers, I want to say NUT.
Say it.
NUT has formed a subcommittee within its steering committee to deal with JSS matters, and that on this Thursday that is coming, they will meet with KEPS officials to discuss the real situation on the ground. So you can talk what you want to talk here at the ministry, you can talk what you want to talk here at the TSC, but you know what, guys? This thing here is very different. They're saying, yes, there are books, there are this, but the fuel to run the thing,
not there.
Okay, banana.
That should be big. These are big conversations that
it
we're having. The AGOA is coming to an end in 2025. We are now in March 2023. Okay, and before the former President Trump left office, they'd already started conversations with Kenya on a new trade deal. Now Joe Biden says we must conclude that trade deal this year. It's actually top on the 2023 agenda of the Joe Biden administration. This bilateral trade pact between Kenya and the US is top. So conversation will happen. Let me tell you something else that's happening in Parliament. Kirinyaga Central MP Joseph Gitari has drafted a bill and taken it to Parliament saying, you see the way we have a regulator for SACCOs, you have a regulator for banks, you have a regulator in the capital markets. He wants a regulator for land selling agencies. Where if you want to sell land in this country, you must be registered with a regulator. And then you must deposit 500 million shillings with the regulator. This serves as a protection fund. So in case you ever come and con people, there's money at least. That sits with the regulator.
And this is for people who are doing it as a business.
Yes.
Not me who wants to sell my land to Eric.
No. Land buying companies.
Okay.
Those ones who buy land, subdivide, sell. All those ones that we've been talking about. The bill will contain provisions that require land buying companies to register with the regulator and then deposit 500 million shillings as a license fee.
500 million shillings is not small money.
Yeah, so don't get into a business if you can't handle it. 500 million shillings sitting somewhere with a regulator, and then you look for an extra 500 million shillings to go and buy land so that you can sell.
That's basically saying don't do it.
Unless you're very serious.
That's what this regulation is saying.
It's leaving it to the big boys.
Yeah.
Precisely. Remember there was this story of the Africa CDC? Interesting story. There was a gentleman who originally came from Cameroon, but he's a Cameroonian American, called Dr. John Kangason. Okay, he now is the gentleman who heads the PEPFAR and the Presidential Emergency Fund for Africa. Then there was a competition. Our Ahmed Ogwell did not out, and we got a gentleman from DRC. Now, we thought this was the end of it, but there is a lady by the name of Dr. Marga Robalo Corella de Silva.
Where from?
Bissau, Guinea. She said, forget it. This thing was foul play.
We're not doing
it. Was not a meritocracy.
She says she should have taken it.
She's informed she was the top scoring candidate, and she's the one who should have been given that job.
So? She's just saying for general information.
She was this thing reevaluated and
open
reconsidered.
The server.
Yes, she's not taking it lying down.
Yeah.
Yep.
She has what's it called? The whistleblower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who was told us that she was number one.
Yes.
Somebody who has inside
knowledge.
Dr. Jean Kasea, the gentleman from DRC who got the job, says no. This thing, the boys met together, agreed. This president spoke to who. It was not based on merit. She wants this thing reconsidered. Big one, this
what are
one.
The chances?
Big one, this one. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm La Obaga. Former Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's lawyers will today make a decision on whether he'll appear before the DCI headquarters in Kiambu Road. Matiang'i was supposed to be questioned by the DCI regarding the alleged police raid on his residence last month. Earlier, Senior Superintendent of Police Michael Sang issued an order compelling Matiang'i to appear at DCI headquarters on the grounds that he may have raised a false alarm regarding the alleged police raid. The former CS is also under probe by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over his wealth. EACC last week wrote to the head of Public Service Felix Koskei seeking information about the wealth declaration of the former Interior Cabinet Secretary. This comes after Matiang'i jetted back into the country on Saturday night after a 2-week visit to the United Kingdom. Kenya Kwanza MPs have vowed to support the LGBTQ bill proposed by Homa Bay MP Peter Kalima to increase the punishment against those involved in such relationships. They've said that they'll oppose the decision of the Supreme Court to allow the registration of such groups of people. Led by Kiambu MP John Wamachua, the MPs have announced their readiness to ensure that their punishment now becomes life imprisonment. According to the MPs, the court's decision violates African customs and traditions. Murang'a woman representative Betty Maina, on her part, has encouraged parents to guide their children morally.
Hii mambo ya gay kusema ati kwamba mwanaume na mwanaume wanaoana ama msichana wanaoana, tumekataa. Hiyo si mila ya Mwafrika. Mwafrika nasema kwamba lazima mwanaume achukue bibi, waone, wapate watoto.
I am sure your bishop hawezi tikia kunisimamisha hapa aniunganisha na mwanamke mwenzangu tuende tukatengeneze familia. Tuko na mashinda mingi. Watoto tunawatafutia karo ya kwenda shule. Hatutaki mambo ya lesbianism. Wale single mother wako kwa hii kanisa, kila wakati tunaomba tupate mzee. Hakuna single mother hapa anaomba apate mwanamke mwenzake.
Kwanza sisi kama bunge tupinge hii mambo ya koti ati kwamba mwanaume na mwanaume waoane. Sisi tunasema hivi, Your Excellency, vile umetuambia, kama koti ina support hiyo, washike mwanaume mmoja na mwingine wafungie wao, wakitoka na mtoto basi tutakubalia waoane.
The president had last week said that although he respects the court, he does not agree with the decision to allow these groups of people to be registered in the country. He said it's against the law to promote same-sex relationships in the country. NC party has strongly opposed the move by the new UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala to demand that affiliated parties of Kenya Kwanza be disbanded. Speaking after holding a party meeting, NC party leader Issa Timami has described the move as inappropriate now that it's only a few months after the Kenya Kwanza government came into power. The party has insisted that it will not be disbanded while suspending Secretary General Simon Kamau and replacing him with Vihiga Woman Representative Beatrice Adagala.
As a party, we do not think that that is important at this stage. Kenya is facing very pressing issues, including issues of security, issues of the economy, and we need to address these issues instead of concentrating on party issues.
Sasa si wakati wa kusema vyama vivunjwe. Sasa ni wakati wa Kenya wanatarajia viongozi ambao tulichaguliwa, rais, wabunge, governors to deliver. Kwa hivyo tunaomba mwenye anapiga makelele mambo ya vyama kuvunjwa, inafaa hiyo sio agenda kuu Mkenya anataka kusikia saa hii.
Speaking in Masena during the weekend, Malala had insisted that all affiliated parties must be dissolved and their members should join the UDA, the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. Trade CS Moses Kuria is among the first party leaders to follow suit. Kenya Kwanza includes Ford Kenya and CDP, Pamoja African Alliance, among other parties. And in the international scene, evacuations from frontline Bakhmut have slowed to a trickle. A Ukrainian official has said 5 to 10 people leave daily and up to 4,500 residents remain. Russia has spent months trying to capture the besieged city in eastern Ukraine. Bakhmut's symbolic importance outweighs its military significance. In South Ukraine, Russian shelling killed at least 4 people in Kherson region this weekend. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Busy on Jogoro this morning, and we're also looking at traffic coming in on Kangunda Road. We're looking at Juja Road as well as Manyanja Road. Really busy this morning. And then Manyanja crosses over to Jogoro Road, which is busy then going out towards Landis. It's coming off heavy on the Thika Superhighway today. Well past Clayworks in from the KU main campus. There's traffic that's snaking along very slowly on the Thika Superhighway this morning. Kiambu Road also doing that thing. There's business coming in from the northern bypass. That is moving at bumper to bumper levels. Also looking at it coming in from Ruaka, heavy as well. Let's look on this side of Westlands. Waiyaki Way busy. James Gishuru also piling up. That's from all the traffic that spilled over from Naivasha Road onto Gitanga Road, Gong Road, and then into Lavington out towards James Gishuru. Also coming in from Zima Springs. So what am I saying? There's traffic everywhere you look this morning. It's moving along slowly. Bumper to bumper in some parts, but I think you can manage it for now. We're not in traffic hour yet even, so it's likely to get crazier as we inch towards 8. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there about what you see, and let's keep things moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
7
Room.
minutes after 7 o'clock on the day that a team got 7 goals. It's the day before the 7th of March.
Where? Are we going to hear the end of this?
No.
How can you? It's 47 seconds after 7 minutes after 7 o'clock.
Right. Right.
What? Right. Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation.
So you just say
this
the 7th
is
hour then?
Yes.
Just say the 7th hour.
I will say it in the 7th hour. Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to Monday. How are you doing? Welcome to the Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, or online on YouTube and Facebook, where we are live streaming the show. We have a guest in the studio. He's the Honorable David Kosing, MP for Pokot South, and also the chairman of the Public Investments Committee on Commercial and Energy Affairs. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Morning, Latif.
Good to have you on the show again.
Good to hear you. Good to be here. The best studio again in this country, I think so.
Not just the country. Can you say that statement again now properly?
Okay, the world. The best studio in the world. Is that okay, Latif?
Kabisa.
Bas.
Kabisa. It's good to have you. It's good to see that you're safe.
Yes, I'm really safe. Yeah? I'm really safe and well. Yeah.
You're well.
I'm sure why you're asking that question, but I'm okay.
Now, we had seen that you are going through some tribulation. You'll tell us about the ongoing operation in your region, and you'll also tell us what your constituents are telling you.
Yes.
But before you do that, hear the day's proverb. This week's proverbs are from which country? City? Rwanda.
Whose capital is?
Kigali.
Yes. Okay. In a court of fowls, a cockroach never wins his case.
In a court of fowls, a cockroach never wins his case.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, do you relate to that proverb?
No, I don't. You know, because there's nothing positive in my place that comes from cockroach. So
even in a court, in your own court, a cockroach would never win its case.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But there's nothing positive about cockroaches in my place. So I don't know what that means.
But do they deserve justice?
I think we need to have the animal people, the animal rights people. And I think if that is the case, then they can talk. But from where I come from, they have no justice.
Cockroach, ukiona cockroach, maliza.
Cause problems. They spoil milk. They spoil everything.
City, why this proverb?
You know, if you look at the history of Rwanda, why I picked this particular proverb, one of the things that led among the narratives that one heard before the genocide was how it is people were profiled, dehumanized, and were actually being referred to as cockroaches.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes. You see, when someone is dehumanized, then it becomes a lot easier for someone to harm them because in your mind, you're not harming a human being. So this term has multiple meanings. But then, according to this particular proverb, we are saying that what do fowls eat? What do they normally eat? They eat insects. Cockroach falls into that category. So if a cockroach happens to walk carelessly in the presence of chicken, as we call them, the chances of survival are next to zero. Yes. So you will be treated unfairly because, as you said correctly, these are the animals considered to be food. Yes.
Condemned and hard.
Before anything happens. So the decision about your life has already been made. So it does not really matter what you do. You will not get justice. Yes.
That's it. That's it. Mheshimiwa, you're here so we talk about the cost of power in the country. I know your committee was holding some sittings last week. You'll tell us about that. But quickly, let's talk about also the other matter. There's an ongoing operation in your constituency among others in your region. What's the latest so far from what you hear?
What's the latest? The army are there. The police also are there. And if you look at this operation carefully, and if you look at the provisions of the constitution upon which the government used to then send the KDF there, they send them under police, meaning this is actually a police operation. But KDF was sent to help. It's just like sending KDF to help during fire and something like that.
Yep.
So it's going on there. What is the most unfortunate from where I come from, which is West Pokot, they send this army to be based in Kainuk, and also police are also based in Kainuk, because that's the disturbed area. Pokot, for us, West Pokot and Turkana border, West Pokot and Marakwet border a bit, And that's where they send the KDF and therefore the police. But what is disturbing us as a community and as Pokot people is that even with that presence of army, right? Actually, Pokot lost more than 2,000 animals on Saturday.
Wait.
The day before yesterday.
This Saturday?
This Saturday.
Okay.
Pokot lost more than 2,000 cows.
How?
You know, and this is surprising, Latif, that there was a seriously organized raid. We used to hear about, and when I say raid, organized raid, is when you can have more than 300 people or 100 people or youth or something like that, or bandits. Now there's a new word in this town called bandits, and that's very popular. Anything happens in this town and in this country, now it's bandits.
Yes.
But before that, if you push it back, they used to be called Moroccos, and then it mutated now to something called raiders. And we stayed with that word raiders for a while. So in 80s, Latif, in 80s, late 70s coming to 80s, we used to have something called raiders, organized. They organize themselves. They move in large numbers, right? If it is from Pokot, they then move in large numbers to raid Turkana. And if from Turkana, they also move in large numbers to raid Pokot. Now, we've not seen it for a while until last week on Saturday, is when Turkana bandits entered into that border. Now the cows of Pokot are between in Masol Ward, which is in West Pokot and Pokot Central sub-county, and also they are in Kasai, the low Kasai of Mbolion division, because of drought. There's a serious drought that place, and therefore animals have gone around the river. And this river I'm talking about, Latif, is River Takwel. That's the only river now at the moment in the entire belt where you can see water. In River Kerio, downside from where we come from, there's no water, right? So all animals have moved towards this side of River Takwel. And animals have been grazing very well. So when the government declared operation and brought in the army, what happened to the Pokot? Because Pokots are peaceful. And I want to tell you this, Latif. People don't understand that Pokots are peaceful. People don't understand that they are not bandits. We have suffered that misrepresentation of our image, or a Pokot image. That when you see a Pokot, you see a raider. When you see a Pokot, you see a bandit. We have been called those names. And I might have suffered because of that bad image. I call it distorted image. That people think that you are a thief, you are a bandit, you are all these names. And why? Because of very long propaganda and negative politics from our own neighbors. So when government to come near to this very bad incident that happened the other day, and that's related to operation that you have asked me. So when government declared operation and brought in the army, what happened in that belt is that the Pokot herders and the village people decided then to herd the animals using a walking stick. Ile fimbo ya mzee, ile ya kuchunga ng'ombe, right? As opposed to maybe using guns, right? Because there's army, there's police, there's operation, and therefore there's no danger, there's no threat. So our people then grazed as normal. Wait, we didn't see this. Kumbe on the other side, our human beings, our brothers and neighbors from the Turkana were actually organizing a raid of more than 300 people, youth. The kind of raid that we have only had during the past years, as I was telling you, 1970s and the 80s, and that's the end. So they moved from various places where we are told from Loima, which is towards the border of Uganda, and from Turkana East, that is the side of Lokori. So they came through Kalimorok and entered into the border, Kainuk, and drove more than 2,000 animals. They got some two grazing boys who were taking care of animals during the day, Saturday morning.
Did they kill anyone?
They killed two boys.
Two boys were killed.
Were just taking care of animals.
How wide is this area from where 200 cattle?
Yeah, I gave you like about a division. Yeah, 2,000, not 200. 2,000 cows, yes. It was in the main media yesterday. You saw that.
So it was a coordinated attack in more than one place.
It is a coordinated. This is a belt. Because as I told you, if you can understand, it's along Takwel River.
Just along the river.
So it's again a belt. So you would find about even more than 5,000 animals and cows grazing. There's no other place where they graze. And therefore, it's very unfortunate. The Pokot on this side, which are peaceful, and government, and listen to government, When the government told them, now we are around this operation, so what happened? The Pokot decided just to be peaceful and graze the animals using walking sticks. Kumbe, and then the Turkanas were actually organizing a serious raid.
How do you know these are Turkanas?
Because who else would come? And that's a very good question. But who else would have come in that area? That's the border of Pokot and Turkana. Who else?
Are you saying that it is not possible for any other community to have raided?
No, it's not possible.
Or any other person, even from your own community?
No. Pokot don't raid each other. That's for information. Pokot don't raid any other Pokot. Right? These are only Turkanas. And in fact, we know where they drove the animals to. And listen to this. First of all, get this point correctly. The army are there. Operation is going on. And then Turkanas had an opportunity to organize themselves and move in that large numbers without being noticed by the army or the police. All the way from Loima, all the way from Turkana East, up to Kainuk, area of Kainuk, and raiding that animals, killing 2 boys, boys, and driving 2,000 cows. And on Saturday evening, they drove them to a village, a kind of a big village in Turkana, right? And the police knew, and the army knew. In fact, when they attacked during the day. The army had to be called in. But those Turkana bandits overpowered the army.
What are you saying?
I'm telling you.
So there was an altercation between the raiders and the military?
Yes. In fact, there was a military chopper on that Saturday that was trying to rescue these animals. Can you imagine? Even with chopper. That, I'm not sure whether that's, I don't know the color of that chopper. But that's a military chopper.
So
right?
So you're saying, Mheshimiwa, it's not working? Because I remember the last time you were here, you told us categorically that if we were to see the presence of, armed forces, if we were to see the present, 1 kilometer away from each other, that we would see a difference. So, and then now here we are with the situation whereby it seems not to be working. So why do you think that is?
This kind of model of operation and sending army will not work. Right? Reactionary method of sending army to quell certain things, like now what's going on, cannot work. But I was trying to emphasize that point, that little did the Pokot community knew that there was army and therefore there was peace. We didn't know that the Turkans were taking advantage and organizing themselves. It's terrible. And they overpowered the army and drove away the 2,000 animals. Up to
what I'm hearing you saying, Mheshimiwa, let's just go step by step. Number one is that you are saying that the Pokot have disarmed.
I would say...
Have they surrendered their firearms, or are they leaving them at home?
They have surrendered some of them. And in fact, the surrender was going on.
And the others are at home?
I don't know where they are and whether they have. But what I'll assure
this
to you...
This entire belt that you're talking about had Pokot who are grazing their livestock, and none of them was armed.
Yesterday, when they were coming, none.
None of them was armed?
Yes, except using walking sticks, because the army were there. They're in Kainuk.
So they were basically grazing within walking distance, or within...
Yes.
Within earshot of the military.
Exactly.
And then you say that there were people who were armed.
Yes.
Who came
and
attacked them, not at one spot, but various spots.
Of that belt.
Within the same day.
Yes.
Happening almost simultaneously.
Yes.
And they were all attacked.
Yes.
The Pokot are unarmed.
Yes.
The people who are raiding them are armed.
Very armed.
And the military are nearby.
Yes.
And the military were not able to...
They responded.
But they were not able to...
But they were overpowered. True.
And the animals have gone.
And animals have gone.
And the security forces have not been able to recover these animals.
Even one. That's the truth.
But you and the members of the community know where the animals were taken to.
First of all, they were taken to Kalimu Rock. Right? To sleep overnight. That's on Saturday night. It was really organized. This was a serious organized raid. And that is why I'm getting even more worried. We as a community are getting worried. We're getting worried that when we are working for government and with government to be able to pacify the entire area, another community is actually free to organize such. Let me ask you, Latif. How can more than 300 people organize themselves? Walk thousands, or maybe even take it, how?
That's why I'm asking these questions, because, Mheshimiwa, from what I'm hearing, the implication of what you're saying today nationally, Mheshimiwa, is that A security operation is ongoing.
Yes.
But what you're implying directly without saying it is that the raiders are still getting the support of the military. You're saying
by not being intercepted, yes.
Because you're saying if it's possible for them to organize,
yes.
If it's possible for them to group, to live wherever they are living, to come all the way to this belt, to attack people who are herding their livestock, to drive the livestock away, and 2 days later for the livestock not to have been recovered, it can only mean that you are alleging that they are enjoying protection.
What I'm alleging, I'm not really alleging. I'm saying that I am seeing advantage that the Turkana bandits, of course, many Turkanas are peaceful. Even they live in Kainuk with Pokot people. Those who are bandits took advantage. And I don't know how they read that the Pokots now have been pacified, and therefore, in quotes, right, they have taken out their defense, right, for defense of government. And they have taken advantage. They came in and drove animals and killing 2 people. They have taken advantage. Something somewhere is not correct.
What is this thing? And I think it continues to be the bane of this entire thing. Is that here we are saying, okay, that it seemed as though it needed the hard arm of the law, as it were, to come down here. But then we're saying that there's one side that's being then advantaged over the other. Whereas it was said, I mean, you were not the first one to say, let's have some kind of presence there.
Yes.
You were not the first one to say it.
Yes.
Others have said it.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's happening. But then again, it is not working.
No.
So then, does it then fuel the speculation that this entire thing is being orchestrated and it is not just natural occurrences that would happen between 2 communities?
No. I think we are being misunderstood. We have not been understood properly.
And by we is...
We, meaning the entire people who live in that belt, Turkanas, Pokots, and so on.
Okay.
You know, our argument has been, and I want to tell you this, Madam Du, get this understanding correctly. And I want to say what I said last year, that my take is this: let us have the police, the army, living there, right? 5 kilometers army, 5 kilo in that belt. I even drew you the map of that belt. I'm still insisting. I'm still in that let us have army living. The army who have gone now have gone for an operation, not to pacify and bring order. That is the difference. So when you bring army like yesterday, right? Maybe even the Turkana bandits were not even aware that the army were there. Maybe they didn't know, because to organize a raid is not like one day. You take like 1 or 2 months, right? There was even some social media, which I don't believe, they were actually showing people practicing to do a raid. I do not know whether it was this what happened. I can't confirm that. But it takes time to organize a raid of about 300 people. And therefore, my thinking is, when those bandits were coming, they didn't know that the army were there. But if you were, for example, to put the army to live there, to bring order in that belt, they would not have organized. And even if they were to organize, then they cannot walk all the way freely, the way these bandits were walking to kill and take more than 2,000 animals. They would not have walked. But when you send army, in fact, this army were there for less than 2 weeks. They have not even known the terrain. To be honest to you, these people are from Nairobi. Maybe they are from Mombasa, others, and so on. They even don't know how that the terrain is. They are there, not because they want to be there. They were forced to be there. So they are also fearing, how are these people? And they were hearing that police were killed.
But they are working with the police.
Yes, so they are not ready. I will tell this.
And the police reservists.
They were caught unaware.
Police reservists are also police.
Yeah, they are working with police reservists, but Pokot don't have even a single police reservist.
What?
Yes. Police, the current government, armed the entire neighbors of Pokot except Pokot. Pokot don't have even a single police reservist.
Why?
I wish the person from government could be here. Or Professor Gindigi would be here to answer that question. I think they don't like Pokots. Yes. I think they have concluded that Pokots are the worst criminals, that they should not be assisted. I would say that, without fear of any contradiction.
What would fuel
Because then what would explain if, for example, government arms communities around one community, right, in the name of NPR? What would explain that? This is Kenya. What would explain that? There's no one KPR in Pokot or NPR in Pokot, as I talk to you.
Is it that they were never there, or the ones who were there were decommissioned?
They were there. That's a very good question, my good brother. They were there. NPR were there for everybody, right? And when I say everybody, is the communities that live around Pokot. They were NPRs. The last government decided to demobilize them. That's a very good word in terms of military and peace studies. They decided to demobilize NPR, which we like as local leaders. I am of the opinion that there should never be any human, any civilian with a gun, whether NPR or no NPR. We should have security instead of NPR. Because if you bring Pokot NPR, they will behave like Pokot and even also maybe use those arms against another community, which is not good. Because if you're arming Pokot against who? Against neighbors like Marakwet or against neighbors like Turkana. Is that what you want to do? So what happened is that in the process of disarmament, the last government decided that let us first of all disarm NPR, which was a very good thing in my view. After disarming now NPR, they were supposed to go to the second phase, which is now to disarm the armed illegal arms from the community. That was a good thing. So that government went. And remember, all NPRs had been demobilized in the entire belt from these sides of Marakwet, Turkana, Pokot also. When this government came, for the last now 5 months, they have again revisited the NPR, but not for Pokot. That is where I do not know whether the irony is not for Pokot. So they gave the other communities their NPR. And they have not given Pokot NPR.
The government has held meetings with leaders from this area. Have you attended any of those meetings?
They have not called us. Government has never even stepped in West Pokot to come and talk to us. And when I mean government, senior leadership of security, political leadership of security, they have never stepped in West Pokot to ask anything.
Where have they been going? Where has Professor Kindiki been going?
He's been going to other communities except Pokot.
Which other communities? Has he been to Baringo?
Yes.
Has he
been to Baringo,
has
he's
he been
to
to
Marakwet. Tiati is Pokot. He's not been in Tiati. He's been to Marakwet. He's been to Samburu. He's been to Turkana. He's been to Baringo. He has never stepped West Pokot.
Have you ever had an opportunity to have a one-on-one with him and to ask these very same questions to him in terms of why then has there been no visitation to West Pokot specifically?
We've not met to ask that question. We met earlier when he was appointed as the minister. You remember I was in the vetting?
Yes.
And I asked him those questions. Professor Kindiki is my very good friend, right? We started politics together and in the same side of political divide for a while. So when he got the job, we decided to say, yeah, congratulations. He's human. So we went to his office and say, yeah, Mheshimiwa, congratulations that you are in. We wish you well. So please, when you settle, then you can have engagement in terms of then what goes on. And I was not alone. I was with other leaders from Pokot. So we had a little kind of congratulatory meeting. That was not a seriously organized meeting for peace.
Yeah.
Then we told him, now when you settle, please, then you can now engage.
Yeah.
Then we can have meaningful engagement. Of course, you cannot avoid throwing one or two advice or maybe what you think way forward to the minister. Suggestions, good words. Suggestions to the minister. Even if when you are saying congratulations, you tell the minister, please pay attention to this and this. That was the last time when we saw Professor Kindiki officially. Of course, we have had a lot of political fights, because then when you see another community being armed against your community, of course, you can't keep quiet as a politician, as a leader. You must throw some punch. Sometimes it is a bit hard, but what do you do? It's necessary, right? Sometimes it hurts them or hurts him. Sometimes. But anyway, to be honest, it's not stepped in West Pokot. And that is why we have taken an offer. We are thinking, then maybe the negative propaganda against our community has entered into government offices. And therefore, even informed decision making, which is very unfortunate. Because, Latif, how can you explain that, first of all, the minister has not stepped your own county to come and listen to leadership, local leaders, opinion leaders, religious leaders, for us to engage and say, what is the way forward?
Has he never called the Pokot leaders to come and talk about these issues?
Never.
Has he called other leaders from the neighboring community?
Yes. He's gone there, not even Gold. He's gone there.
Let's take a break. You'll tell us about what then you are doing about it. Okay? So if he hasn't reached out to you, have you reached out to him? if he hasn't reached out to you, have you used the, parliamentary pastoralists, communities caucus to reach out to him on all these other avenues that you have at your disposal? We'll discuss that. 27 minutes to 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. David Kosing is the Member of Parliament for Pokot South constituency. He's also a chairman of the Parliamentary Investments Committee on Commercial and Energy Affairs. We invited him to talk about commercial and energy affairs, but there's an ongoing operation which has taken the first half an hour, and we'll continue with it for a bit. Mheshimiwa, you've flown Emirates, I'm sure.
Yes.
And you've flown business or first class?
Business.
How's it?
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. We keep telling people that. I mean, it's very nice. When you fly business or first
so you
class
had an agenda?
Emirates.
We did.
It's
Look at
always,
this
we
guy.
always have an agenda. When you fly business or first class, you get the best treatment.
It's true.
You're getting in as you check in. On the flight itself, you get a flat bed. You get, you're given linen to actually cover yourself. You don't just lala inje kama lori.
It's true.
You enjoy the best cuisine.
Yes.
It's actually gourmet, right? Yeah. And you get to interact. You walk up and down. There's the bar up there, especially if you're in the A380. Yeah. And you come out and you find the business lounge, the Emirates lounge, where you can go in there and freshen yourself up and go into a meeting appearing like you've just stepped out of the house.
Very true.
In that country.
Very true.
Fly better with Emirates, that's what we say.
Okay.
26 to 8. We'll continue shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I have a brother. He was a pilot. He was laid off. He came to a policeman. He messed up.
He went from a pilot to a policeman.
Exactly.
He stole a jet.
Yeah.
In fact, you should be lucky he was not court-martialed.
The Spice Drive. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Indeed, it's all about hashtag Spice Drive, hashtag Quatch, KWACH, 3 to 7 in the PM.
The Spice Drive, only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Damn.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. That's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
So who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest
It's
conversation.
17 in Nairobi and sunny. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 16. 13 in Nakuru, 11 in Nyeri, 15 in Eldoret. At 25, Mombasa is sunny, and at 26, Malindi is sunny as well. 19 and sunny conditions in Kisumu, highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 33 in Kakamega. It's 19 in Kampala and 26 in Dar es Salaam. Sunny conditions at 17 in Johannesburg and cloudy conditions at 28 in Lagos. We're looking into Kinshasa, where we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 25.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
Spice up your life.
All right, getting into it. This is traffic hour on a Monday morning, and it looks heavy coming in from the thicker superhighway, and we're likely to see it get thicker still. Traffic then coming in heavy through and through. The service lanes is what you ought to think about using today. And then as you try to get into the CBD, let's look then at the Northern Bypass, which has quite some traffic here as well. And coming in from Muthaiga Square out towards Wangari Maathai Way, you'll touch on Ring Road Westlands at the very end of it, and a little bit coming off of James Gishuru. We're in traffic hour proper now this morning. It's heavy. It will be so for some time. Let's try to be safe. A bit of an accident, a slight one, on the Thika Superhighway slowed things down for a minute there, but they're trying to sort that out, and you should be well on your way in no time. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation continues with MP David Kosing from Pokot South constituency. You've made several allegations this morning, Mheshimiwa. First of all, you've talked about this raid that happened on Saturday, where you say some over 200 people raided members of your community, and they drove off with over 2,000 heads of cattle. And none of them has been recovered, not even a single one. And you say that your community had disarmed. They were actually just out there grazing with walking sticks. Not a single one of them had any weapon, any gun. Then the attackers came and they had guns. There's a military operation ongoing, and despite the security officers responding, they were not able to recover any of the stolen livestock. And you have the intelligence to know where the livestock was taken, where they spent the night, and from there where they left, where they went to. So you are also able to track where the animals have been. And you're saying it's not possible for the security agencies to track the same?
That is the question, Latif. There's all Kenyans who are listening to me. I know they might not believe me.
Question is,
that's the question they're asking.
Did this raid actually take place?
Yes, it did. It happened.
Is there a way of verifying that 2,000 animals were stolen?
You see,
not 100.
Because
not
I'm the one
50,
talking, you might think that
10.
I'm conflicted, because then I'm from Pokot community, and I will not ask for an apology for being a Pokot. I'm very proud to be one. But you know, Latif, there are also systems of government, security systems of government. You can call the OCPD Turkana, or you can call the person in charge of operation in Kainuk, and they will tell you this. Yes, they will tell you that. It's not, and the information I'm telling you, I've also talked to them. Although I come from there, but I also talk to them. Yes, Latif, you might hear
that was the next level of my questions.
I've talked to them.
Which is, which officials have you actually reached out to since Saturday?
I have reached
to discuss this particular matter.
I've reached to most of the people in security, right, including both ministers.
Who's the highest that you've talked to?
I've talked to in messages to the ministers, because they were engaged.
Who have you engaged with? Like they've talked back.
The talk back is the person in charge of us two in Kainuk, and also the person in charge of KDF in the same place, Kainuk. Yes,
and these are the ones who are in charge of the operation in this particular area.
Absolutely.
What did they tell you?
They told me what I've told you, that when they were working very hard, they were unable. And I don't primarily or directly blame them. To be honest to you, they're only 2 weeks there. They're also human beings, right? They're also human beings. They're children of people like me and you. So in that understanding, you would just say, or maybe 1 or 2 days or 3 days or another 1 week or 2 weeks, they will have been able to understand the terrain. And that is my understanding, right? But you see, the question I'm just putting myself, even if those army are in Kainuk and that area, how can 200 people come all the way without being noticed? Even from now the regular security who are there. How? Were they colluding with them? Leave alone now the people who were sent the other day to do operation and help pacify the entire place. What about the people who are there? Are they colluding? Are they accomplices and something like that? So Latif, these are very. And why am I talking in so emotional? It's because the operation is there. Our people have disembarked or disarmed. They were even working. I will tell you this. They had even very good plans. In fact, the 2 officers who were sent by national government to Kainuk were already engaging recovery of now the proper operation, recovery of of guns. They were engaging the chiefs, they were engaging the Mukasas or the village elders and so on in the proper manner. And they were reaching certain consensus in terms of moving in recovery. And that is on the Pokot side, which I understand, which is my own community. Little did we know that the other communities were taking advantage and organizing the raid. Little did we know that. And therefore, our people had disembarked. They were the KDF and ASTU are moving in the entire belt, which I'm telling you. They're all over the place. You cannot have a gun.
Mheshimiwa, I have to ask, because looking at this, again, I go back to when Professor Kindiki was being vetted, and one of the questions he asked was, how are you actually going to solve this problem?
Yes.
And one of the things that he said he would even move into this area. That's one of the things he said. Maybe speaking figuratively or speaking definitively, that he would actually have presence there. But from the last few minutes of this conversation, I can hear the frustration, and I can sense that actually these latest moves then do not seem to be working because of several different factors. You talk about habitable presence.
Yes, habitable, that's the best word.
By
habitable presence.
The armed forces.
Yes.
You talk about that. That's absolutely necessary to happen. If this is a suggestion that has come from you, from others, why do you think it is so difficult to have that done? Because we have seen in the last 2 weeks that it is clear that even with the military presence there, that's this operation, this thing is not working because the raids continue, the theft continues, the danger continues. Why is it so difficult to have this habitable presence in this area?
I don't know. We've talked about it, and last time I was here, and I will say again, it's been done in Uganda. Habitable presence. Why? Because then you bring order, so that when the Pokots are grazing, right, they're grazing with certain level of order. The police will tell them, or the ADIM will tell them, today you are drinking water in this part of the river.
Yeah.
Maybe in the morning or between now, maybe until 11. Then from 12 noon, then the Turkanas also can come and share the same water.
Yes.
Because then Turkanas also will go nowhere, right? Or the other communities will not, they must share this small or little resource. So you bring kind of some order, right? And when you're bringing order, then you build schools. You provide for what I call alternative livelihood. I will tell you to do. I invited you last time. I don't know how you're going to go there now with operation. There is no other livelihood there. I don't blame Turkanas, I don't blame Pokots. If you go to that belt, there's no livelihood. So what's the livelihood? Livelihood is a cow, and even it's also religious.
Yeah.
So if you're sick, then they have to sell that a goat for you to go to hospital. If you're going to school, there's no school in the first place. So these children have got to go to school. So we were thinking that then when you bring the habitability of army, then the army will build school, right? Army will build school. Of course, you'll ask me now, what about decentralized government or this devolution government and so on? That's another thing. There's no security there. There's no presence of security. So then army will build schools, will build roads, will build hospitals. The way Kibaki did, we have been having operations in every government. By the way, for your information, every government has been having operation. Kibaki brought the best kind of operation, which is when you're doing operation, disarming people, provide for them alternative livelihood, so that they don't go back, they don't sink back. And Kibaki succeeded almost 100% in western part of West Pokot. That is the Pokot Uganda, the Pokot Sabay. We used to have a very big problem. You used to hear us fighting with Sabay, fighting with Luya here in Trans Nzoia. You used to hear a lot of those. Our animals and cows are going to graze into, maize plantations of Luya. And Pokot don't understand. They are saying, what is the problem? This is a grass. They don't understand that actually it will grow up to become maize. So they didn't understand that because there was no order. So Kibaki came in, brought in order in that belt. And there's no problem. Brought in schools, building roads, right? Hospitals, water, water boreholes and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That is Kibaki. And that's why if you go there, Latif and Andu, when you go to that belt, which is West and West Pokot, entire border between Pokot and Trans Nzoia, very peaceful. There are almost 300 kilometers of Pokot, or West Pokot and Uganda, very peaceful. We have a problem in a very small area, which I don't know why it has defeated government to listen and even to borrow a leaf from Uganda. This belt between, which is inside, from Takwel, right? Coming to now Kainuk, where there's a big problem. going to this side of Lokori, Lomelo, right? And going to Baragoi. It's a very small area. So that if you were to then bring the army to stay in this place, build schools, build hospitals, and then bring in connection of roads, you'll achieve what? People will get alternative livelihood. That's number one. Number two, even if they had guns, and you stay there for 15 years, that gun will be useless. It will rust, it will be bad, it will be thrown away. And then the third one is you will have removed the generation of young people. That if you go to these raiders who came from Turkana, they are about 200. The oldest will be 15 years. 15 years, imagine. So if you stay there for 15 years, for example, and building schools and make people go to school, you will have cleared that generation to school.
Yes.
Entire generation. So you don't have anybody in between here who has not gone to school, and therefore there's no rate. You do not have rate between 15 years and below. Then you'll have graduated the one who are in rate. Then bring them Hustlers Fund or something. Then take them away to something useful there. And then this generation, small generation, take them to school. 15, 30 years, Latif, remove your army. I bet that is the best strategy that can happen.
Essentially, you're saying it can't be an operation that lasts for a month or 2 months.
Useless.
It has to be something that is given a priority in terms of decades.
Absolutely.
Not 1 year, not 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. Essentially, you're thinking of the model that Museveni used in Uganda, Mange Karamajong.
Yes. And it worked. You remove entire generation to school. So who will be raider, my good brother? Nothing. We've talked about that. We've said it. But this reactionary of taking 1 month, taking people to go and earn some per diem or I don't know what you call them, for 1 month and something like that, operation money is offered, then you bring them. And then what happens? They will sleep over. Have you removed the generation? No.
Mheshimiwa, let me ask this question. What role has the church played in trying to quell these conflicts?
Very good question. They have really tried. But the moment there is no order, my good brother. So, for example, if you take a church, there is even a church I'm helping in this side of Tiati. In fact, I went to encourage. There's a missionary from Eldoret who went to establish a church at a place called Kongor in Tirioko ward of Tiati. That is still where our community are living. And in fact, I visited him, and I almost cried, because the place he went to a place where you would say is a no man's land. Really no man's land. Established a small church, AIC church from Eldoret. So he started a small church and is trying to do something there. And really, I was really moved. The church plays a really critical role. The problem will be if, for example, if that church is a Turkana church in that wilderness, and then Pokot come and raid and kill people around there, they will run away. And therefore the church will die. And that's why I was saying, let us have presence. Let us have what she says, habitable presence of KDF or army. Then now you bring in church, you bring in hospital, you bring in water and so on, and life will be normal. Organized, normal, formal life will be present.
We'll be back to normal.
15 years, 20 years, remove your army now.
You'll
do whatever
sorted.
you want to do.
Mheshimiwa, you started by saying that the current operation is actually a police operation and the military are there only to help the police.
Yes, that's the model, yeah.
And you said for that reason, you find no problem with the ongoing operation in terms of legality of the presence of the military. But is that really what is envisaged in law?
Yes,
that
it is.
If military are working under police, then even parliament does not need to be consulted?
Yes, no. If you look at I didn't bring the constitution, but I read it when it was being done. The section they have used is what I'm telling you, that the army are going just to help. That is provided for in the constitution. And therefore, you only inform parliament. There's no debate, there's no approval. But there's also a section which, if they're deploying, they can use. They will now seek approval, like what they did for Congo, right? So when they did for Congo, they sought for approval.
Is there any situation envisaged in the constitution where the military would operate within the borders of Kenya without working with other security agencies?
Yes.
Like which one?
That's why I'm telling you, Latif, the answer is yes. And I gave you, if you do a model of staying, like for example, Latif, who will deny our government building a barracks, for example, in Lomelo Or in Kainuk, let's say, for example, let's take an example of the area which is a bit disturbed. Where do you need an approval?
Barracks is different from operation.
But you see, that's what I'm saying. I don't like operation. I need habitable, which is like a barracks. Yes.
We have.
It's just like maybe
we have a barracks in Langata.
Take this one from Langata. Take to Kainuk.
Is the barracks in Langata doing anything around Langata community?
Nothing.
Because it's not deployed.
You see,
it is just a military barrack.
Yes, let me tell you, when they have
officers in Langata cannot walk out and start arresting people because there is insecurity.
But that is not
on Langata Road.
It has never been a responsibility of any military to arrest.
Okay,
is to pacify. But Kibaki did, my brother, and he succeeded. So why are we arguing? Why are we having a lot of academic discussion?
I'm asking this because
in Kenya, I'm not saying about us here.
The question,
the country is engaging in a necessary academic discussion.
Because what you're proposing today is you have longer term military presence in your area.
Yes.
And I'm asking, would that be the kind of current operation where you have a 30-year operation, or would it be a situation where they need to come to Parliament to seek approval? And what kind of approval would that be? What would that be called?
We will have to check that together.
A military operation?
I'll consult that. But we have no option. If we need to pacify this place, Latif, we have no option. We will talk about it. We will fight and arrest leaders, and even have a lot of big language of commercialization and so on. And to me, that is diverting the entire attention. And therefore, you intimidate leaders, and you make everybody then look like they are criminals and so on. You criminalize almost everybody, because it is maybe very easy to talk about that. But we will not really have solved the problem. After 1 month, what happens? Then you leave that place. Then the same people will suffer forever. That is why I'm saying, why don't we try something? Please, I'm asking our government. I'm asking the people now who are in charge. My own colleagues and friends and HSETs who are now in positions of power. Why don't we try something else? Why, for God's sake? Why don't we try something else, Latif? I'm asking. Why?
If there was a debate in Parliament, you'd have had the opportunity to ask those questions.
Yes, I would.
If a matter like this,
in fact,
is on the floor.
If a debate
those questions.
is brought to Parliament.
So my question right now to you is: so yes, there was an operation. Well, there was a raid that you say happened on Saturday. There were 2 men were killed. Thousands of livestock were driven. You're a member of Parliament representing this community. What are you going to do next?
I think you're asking for my way forward.
Yes,
and I'll give you. And you are very clever, Latif, I'll give you some A if you want to give you some. But I have about 3 or so, Latif. Number 1, I want to ask the government, now that we've lost 2,000 animals, for us even and for the people around Kainuk to even get some confidence, they must return those 2,000 animals. Right? Bare minimum. Mm-hmm. Even for us even to listen to them and take them seriously and take government seriously. Because you know what, Latif? You cannot have peace without dialogue.
Okay.
So this government will must dialogue at some point with Pokot leaders.
So if no animals?
Let me not give a threat.
Okay.
I want us to join hands together with them. We want to give them our surety.
So even if it's not the same animals that were taken, a replacement of those animals?
Let it be.
Will that survive?
Yes, it's animal for us in Pokot. There's no cow that's written in Pokot.
Right.
Even Turkana can also be their cow, right? So, but they should return those to for heaven's sake, for confidence sake, right? Even for us.
That is number 1.
Number two, I'm asking the same government, now that there is the entire place is disturbed. Point number 2, now that they have also deployed KPR or NPR in the other communities, right? Without looking at fairness and justice, I'm asking them to deploy and to recruit KPR and NPR in Pokot with immediate effect. And this is how they're going to start. My suggestion, because I'm still thinking about that age group, which are being misused as cattle rustlers or bandits, 15 years. I'm asking the government to look at the following divisions in West Pokot. Number 1 division is Masol, where it is the most disturbed now. And for children to school, they should start by recruiting 3 NPR in every primary school, secondary school, and a nursery school. They must start with that.
What do you mean?
So that our children, who will take care of those children?
Or recruit and deploy to school?
Yes, first of all, to
not
begin with
recruit from the school?
No.
Okay.
Recruit, because they will be locals. NPR are locals.
Okay.
So that in everywhere there's an institution, a school, a nursery, or a secondary school. Because, we are taking care of that age set, which are being used as bandits. That the government should immediately, right? Even if they might not like us, they might not like Pokot, or they might have entered or bought the propaganda that the Pokots are bad, I want to ask them, for heaven's sake and for God's sake, that they should deploy NPR in that division called Masol. They should also deploy in Napoleon division of Kasai area and Takwel. They should also look at Chesekon. We have lost Latif, an entire division called Chesekon between Pokot and Marakwet, which I didn't speak about it now. That they should deploy those NPRs there and Kamele, for example, in Pokot South. Let them start in terms of goodwill. I want to ask them to do those two things. Number one, to return the animals, and number two, to deploy NPR and employ NPR with immediate effect. So that you know what? So that you gain a community confidence. Now, at the moment, if you go to West Pokot, the entire Pokot community, right? If you look at their mood is very low. Particularly to this
They're demoralized.
They are very demoralized. So if you are to do those two things, then the third one will be. Then the third one will be. Now let us engage. Let us dialogue. After that, there is no peace without dialogue. There is no justice without dialogue. And you dialogue with the leaders. You cannot just assume that communities have no leadership. Communities have leadership. You dialogue with those leaders.
Final question. We have only 20 seconds to go. So you've told us this here. What next are you doing? Are you going to Parliament to raise this? Are you going to Kindiki's office? Are you going to the President's office? What are you going to do after you leave here?
I'll give them time. I'll tell you this, Latif.
Are you writing to them?
Of course, they are aware of what I'm saying. Some of them are also watching me now. Okay. And I'll tell you, why am I saying that? Because we've tried, Latif. We've tried. And nothing has happened. So, wait and see.
David Kosing, MP, Pokot South constituency, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll keep asking you for more updates and to hold you accountable as well. You're elected by the people of Pokot South to represent them.
Yes.
Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga. Pokot South lawmaker David Kosing alleges that Turkana bandits are still using guns despite the Pokot community taking heed to the government's directive to hand over their guns. Kosing, while being interviewed on SpiceFM's Situation Room, says the recent attack during the weekend that saw 2 boys killed and 2,000 heads of cattle stolen took place despite the police operation in the region.
This is a belt, so you would find about even more than 5,000 animals and cows grazing. There's no other place where they graze. And therefore, it's very unfortunate. The Pokot on this side, which are peaceful, and listen to government. When the government told them, now we are around this operation, so what happened? The Pokot decided just to be peaceful and graze the animals using walking sticks. Kumbe, and then the Turkanas were actually organizing a serious raid. Because who else would have come in that area? That's the border of Pokot and Turkana. Who else? Pokot don't raid any other Pokot. These are only Turkanas. And in fact, we know where they drove the animals to. First of all, the army are there. Operation is going on. And then Turkanas had an opportunity to organize themselves and move in that large numbers without being noticed by the army or the police.
Kosing further says that despite the strong police force in the North Rift region, their model of operation won't work.
And on Saturday evening, they drove them to a kind of a big village in Turkana. And the police knew, and the army knew. In fact, when they attacked during the day, the army had to be called in. But those Turkana bandits overpowered the army. In fact, there was a military chopper on that Saturday that was trying to rescue these animals. Can you imagine? That kind of model of operation and sending army will not work. Reactionary method of sending army to quell certain things, like now what's going on, cannot work. But I was trying to emphasize that point, that little did the Pokot community knew that there was army, and therefore there was peace. We didn't know that the Turkanas were taking advantage and organizing themselves. It's terrible. And they overpowered the army and drove away the 2,000 animals.
At least 509,000 people are facing acute starvation in Garissa County. The National Drought Management Authority CEO Harriet Hassan says this number could rise given the focus on the suppressed rains. The number has increased from 350,000 in the month of December, which was announced by the Kenya Red Cross. Hassan said other communities in the emergency category are Wajir, Samburu, Marsabit, Mandera and Isiolo. He disclosed that the state agency is closely watching the counties to ensure ensure they mobilize resources for targeted intervention. Hassan further disclosed that the National Drought Steering Committee has planned to issue relief food in Garissa County. Azimio Party supporters now have 2 days left to determine whether they'll hold a mass action. Coalition leader Raila Odinga had threatened to lead the protests over the high cost of living, giving the government a 14-day grace period. The deadline ends on Wednesday, with Raila promising to issue further directions. Other demands made were the opening of the IBC servers and halting the process of appointing new IBC commissioners. Here is Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka.
Maandamano ambayo yatakuweko itakuwa ya amani, so that Kenyans can speak. Ama sivyo, you be bottomed up, unakaliwa juu chini, huwezi kupumua, haiwezekani.
Na sisi hatupigi kifua. Kama hawaamini hiyo, wafungue sava, ukweli ujulikane.
Police in Langata sub-county within Nairobi are investigating an incident where their colleague allegedly shot dead 2 women before turning the gun on himself. The 2 shooting victims are the deceased officer's wife and a colleague's spouse, whom he is said to have shot twice after excusing himself from patrol duty to pick something from his house. According to a police report filed at the Langata police station, the officer then locked himself inside his house before shooting his 28-year-old girlfriend 7 times last night. Officers who responded to the scene say their colleague died as a result of a self-inflicted gunshot that entered his neck from the front and exited from the back. The 3 bodies have been moved to the city mortuary pending further investigations. And in the international scene, 2 U.S. senators plan to introduce legislation this week aimed at letting the government ban or prohibit foreign technology products such as Chinese-owned TikTok. Senator Mark Warner, who is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said TikTok would be one of the potentials for review under the bill. The bill comes at a time when TikTok is under intensifying pressure over concerns that data about U.S. users could end up in the hands of the Chinese government. The U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee voted on Wednesday last week to give President Joe Biden the power to ban TikTok in what would be the most far-reaching U.S. restriction on any social media app. The White House last week gave government agencies 30 days to ensure that TikTok is not on any federal devices and systems. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
We've got quite some traffic coming off the Thika Superhighway this morning, and also some still continuing on Kiambu Road getting into the CBD. All right, we're also looking at it heavy on West Waiaki Way. Coming out of Westlands, pretty heavy from what we see. Totally messy is what is being described as this morning. Kangemi towards Westlands near the HQ of ABSA. And so folks are wondering what exactly is going on this morning. Total mess there. We'll look at the reasons as to why, if you let us know what those might be. It's affecting traffic then coming off of Waiaki Way because it's seeping in ever so slowly. We're also looking at traffic on Gong Road coming in from Magadi Road, spilling over past Ongata Rongai, then onto Langata Road. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens in a bit. We're in Traffic Hour proper. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving as best we can.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 8. Some scripts just write themselves. It's 7 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, which broadcasts every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 hug.
Wow. Hey. You're on a roll, eh?
It is sweet. It is sweet. The conversations continue. We want to switch over the conversation now, and we want to talk about the role of our elected politicians. We are addicted to too much endless partisan politics at the expense of governance and representing the people and addressing the plight of Kenyans. Joining us for that conversation is Kipruto Arap Kirwa. He is a former member of parliament, former cabinet secretary. Oh, no, those days it was not cabinet secretary.
Cabinet minister.
It was former cabinet minister.
Yes.
And party aficionado who's here now. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. How are you keeping?
Very well. I think it can be better, given the fact that the drought is ravaging the entire country.
Yep.
And each one of us is worried.
Yep.
Not about our livestock, but about our lives. Yeah, it is worrying.
You know, you come from an area where it rains, and it rains properly. Charangani. Is it raining now in those hills?
Not quite. In fact, the rain got depressed towards the end of last year. Usually in October, there is a bit of rain that comes, then in December. But we did not witness that. And we are likely not to have good rains even if the season is going to start. It's usually 20th of March. That's when we would start planting.
Yeah.
And that's when the rains come. But I'm not sure about this year.
We hosted an MP from the MP for Molo last week, and he told us throughout his life growing up, he has never seen Molo go for so many months without a drop of rain.
Yes, that's true. But even in Nakuru, some parts of Nakuru, like in Dabibi, where it gets a lot of rain, but this time there's no rain. The river next to my house here in town has not had the lowest like this year. But some of the water levels that I've been enjoying at the front of in front of my house, now this year I'm worried. I'm seeing more of stones than water. Yeah.
It's a sad situation. Let's discuss that as we talk about the plight of Kenyans. But to welcome you into the show, C.T. Muga has the day's proverb.
Yeah, thank you. It's the first time I get here. I've been enjoying it from my house, but now I'm enjoying. And I realize also President Museveni enjoys.
Of course he does.
Because he mentioned him. He's the young man with the white beard. In Jivumbi.
City?
Our proverbs for the whole of this week from the country of Rwanda. Now, did you know that in terms of size, Rwanda is the 149th largest country in the world?
Out of how many?
Well, take your pick. How many countries are there in the world?
It's about 204.
Yes, exactly. So they're smaller countries. Some of them are called principalities, but Rwanda is that size. Now, did you also know that Rwanda has a prime minister? I mean, everyone knows about President Kagame.
Yeah.
Okay? But do you know who the prime minister is?
I forget his name. I've seen some communication.
Edward Girente. That is the name.
He's the prime minister.
I wanted to say that.
You wanted to say that? Yes.
Is there an office of the spouse of the prime minister in Rwanda?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay. They can have one if they like.
As I said, not that I know of.
They should think very, very strongly
about that. The spouse of the president of this particular country is also a serving minister.
She is.
Oh.
Yes.
Just like Uganda.
Yes.
Yes. So.
Okay. But did you know in Equatorial Guinea?
Yes.
The deputy president is the son of the president.
Oh yeah, those fellows are progressive that way. Yes. Yes. They understand these things. Yes. Keep things close within the family.
Of course.
Yes.
Keep people getting
employed. The president himself overthrew his own uncle.
Yes, he did.
As I said, keep things close within the family.
What's the proverb?
The proverb is, in a court of fowls, a cockroach never wins his case.
In a court of fowls,
yes,
a cockroach never wins his case.
Yes.
Okay.
Kipruto, do you understand this proverb?
Well, like if any goat was to get into a hyena's courtyard, it will be diminished. So, no justice in society, which goes also by the principle of realism.
that human nature is evil from the beginning of time. Yeah.
The weak will never get the justice.
You don't expect that you'll enjoy justice.
That's indeed true. Let's talk about the state of the nation. So we have various things that are happening. Now, you've, of course, started by telling us about the drought, which, yes, we are right there in the middle of worst drought in 40 years in this country. There's a story in the papers today that's talking about just the last 5 months, about, is it 2.5 million heads of cattle have died?
2.5 million.
2.5 million, according to the National Drought Management Authority, in just 5 months, and in 2 counties, focusing on 2 counties. Many more livestock have actually died across the country. Many more people are going without a meal, and we're talking about raising, how we can feed the people. Cost of living going up. With now the exchange rate doing the way it's doing, it means that also cost of goods as the raw material comes into, the inputs come into the country, going up. Very many things, and the government is trying to grapple with all these things at the same time. Do you think they have a handle on things?
Well, I do not want to sound negative, but I think there is so much about bitterness over the previous regime than focusing on real issues. As you've said, we've lost livestock in a number of counties, and those are the ones which have been recorded. We have also lost wildlife. You see zebras and some other animals that in the past they have survived. I traveled to Kajiado over the weekend, and you could see almost in every market, you can no longer see any cow. Or you can see 10 cows, and you see a lot of bones when you go to the interior. The small stock are the ones which have survived because they can get some food from tree leaves, dry ones, and so forth. So it is a very serious situation in the country, and I feel that the regime of the day should spend more time focused on the issues that affect each one of us instead of getting worried about Uhuru or Raila. Those people are not in charge of the country, and therefore let's allow them to do what they are doing, what the opposition is supposed to do. That is my worry. And I don't see an answer coming soon, given the level of bitterness that regardless has turned himself into an auditor, he's turned himself into a prosecutor, and a jailer, and of course a prison warden, because he wants everybody to look like they are under them. They should realize that, yes, democratically, they may claim they have won the election, and have no reason because Chebukati pronounced, Supreme Court affirmed, but the truth of the matter is that this country is bleeding, and that we cannot run away from.
Don't you think that they're also doing that? They're also dealing with the issues that are affecting Kenyans on a daily basis. They have looked at how to cut back the budget by presenting a supplementary budget that, has cut things. They've looked at how do we address the issue of farmers, provision of subsidized fertilizer to farmers, and saying, look, we're going to have some rainfall season. It's going to be suppressed, but nonetheless, plant, and here's the reduced cost of input for fertilizer. They've looked at organizing on how they can feed the people who are hungry. Don't you think they are still addressing the issues that are there? Only that politics is being highlighted more.
Well, I've been in the same shoes before. Famine relief is the worst components of corruption. If you want to get involved in famine, in corruption, just invite drought and famine, and there you will get your money. You can be removing maize from the stores, let's say 2,000 bags or even 20,000 bags every day, and you can call the press to show people in the queue, only to realize that only 2 bags out of 20,000 is what has gotten to the people. And how to audit that is impossible. It's like the queue voting in 1988, where the longest line became the shortest and vice versa. So if you want to get involved in real corruption, talk of famine relief. That is one component of the story. The second issue is that we are grappling with issues of trying to make the cost of living better. But when it comes to fertilizer subsidy, it's a component out of so many other components. The most important is how do you handle post-harvest losses? Towards the end of last year, this regime had taken over, and that is when we were harvesting the bulk of the maize in the North Rift. And you would have expected that they would intervene by bringing a measure of purchasing for purposes of cushioning the farmer and ensuring that there is price stabilization. That was the essential component of National Cereals and Produce Board. You buy when the prices are low. And when there is high supply, you take it away so that you stabilize the prices. Just like the role of central bank. It just waits when the dollar seems to be misbehaving. They mop up the dollars from the market or release the dollars to the market. They did not do that. So they failed in one cardinal principle of trying to handle post-harvest losses. Eric, remember post-harvest losses in Kenya, especially for maize, comprises a component of 30%. This therefore because of poor handling of the grains. So even the farmers who are stuck with maize, we were accusing them of hoarding. Those conditions are not good enough. One time in my life, I kept 1,000 bags of maize in the stores from January to June. By the time I tried to sell in June, I had lost 400 bags.
Wow.
So 40% of the crop that I had. And that is when I learned never keep any crop in the stores, sell it immediately. You may sell it at a loss, but you are better off. Because in Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, some parts of Western, there is this weevil called Osama. If it gets into your store, it will eat the maize, it will eat even the gunia. So at the end of the day, you will find powder that your maize has been turned into. And that is a reality. We are not just talking out of imagination. This is a practical reality. I would have expected the government to intervene by purchasing excess from the farmers and ensuring that prices were stabilized. I would have expected them to improve transportation, because that is another component of post-harvest handling. I would have expected them to intervene in terms of even storing for the farmers so that to release to them, because there are better facilities of storage compared to me and you as ordinary farmers in Trans Nzoia or any other part of this nation.
Right. Even as you talk about these expectations in terms of what needs to be done, a lot of times we can we can sit and pontificate about many things and say it should have been, it ought to be, I expect that this be done. The things that you speak of, in terms of difficulty for the government, on what scale would you put that on? 1 to 10. 10 being the most difficult, to be able to get these things that you're saying be done.
Well, it doesn't need rocket science. It just needs a bit of innovation and a bit of practical reality, and also a bit of patriotism. Because who is importing this maize they are telling us, the 4 million bags or so? It's the same people, the same cartels. William Ruto was saying he was going to chase cartels out of State House. As he was chasing the others to Abratam, he was entering with some of them, and we know them. Some of them had 17 cases. They were all dropped. Some of them had issues with KRA. They ended up almost presiding over KRA. So what we are doing is that we are pretending. Let me say this. If, for lack of a better term, this country is held hostage by individuals who call themselves leaders. Whether they are in Azimio or in Kenya Kwanza, we've been held hostage because there is conspiracy that brings what we call a coalition, which is not coalition. It's a misnomer to call it coalition. It's balkanization of Kenyans. So people conspire, like the four of us, we can conspire. We say you come from community A, B, C, D. Then we say together we are going to conspire against the rest of the country, and we win power, and we appropriate ourselves. That's why an individual is calling a whole nation a company with shareholders, excluding the rest of us. It worries me.
When you say that, because you're actually raising some serious concern here, you're talking about it's not part of the government plan. And I like the journey that you've begun. We had farmers who were harvesting their crop towards the end of the year. And we're already talking about anticipating that we're going to have a shortage of the required amount of maize in the market, which is why we're talking about anticipating that we'll open up the window for importation of grains from February and March. But you're saying in that intervening period, the government should have done better to make sure that we do not lose any of the grain that we harvest. So they didn't do that. Now we are talking about importation. The deputy president the other day was cautioning farmers as he was opening the ASK show in Eldoret. You have maize, please sell it now, because when the imported maize comes, it's going to be tax-free, it's going to be cheaper, and you will lose out. But now you're going further to say, this importation window, we should also look at this. Who's participating in it? Why should we focus on that?
We should focus on it because, you know, this region called IGAD region, all the way from Ethiopia to Zambia, including parts of COMESA and even SADC, is a grain deficit region. This therefore means there is no time that we have enough. But it is also a region that has some kind of discrepancies, that one time we have surplus in Kenya when Tanzania is crying, or Malawi. At times Ethiopia, southern Ethiopia, has a bit of maize, and we are crying here in Kenya, especially the northern frontier. So it is a region that we need all the time to be alive to the moving dynamics of the weather. Because when Tanzania has surplus crop, Kenya has a problem. And when they have surplus crop, the following season, they are likely to run into a deficit. So if there was a way of having a grain storage that can be, say, the Horn of Africa, that would be able to mitigate some of the problems. But the mistake we make is that we behave in pigeonholes, in silos. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and so forth. So that when there is surplus in Uganda, it's only through our own informal networks, what we call cross-border trade, which is done at times illegally and in very, 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 very unique situations legally, despite even the opening of the borders. And at times you also do from Tanzania. That comprises about 10% of the maize that we have here in Kenya and even southern Ethiopia. So what we need to do is to be alive to those challenges and make sure we assist. The 110 depots of National Cereals and Produce Board distributed nationally, some are supposed to be taking in the maize, some are supposed to be storing the maize. And one time when I was in the ministry, we realized that southern Ethiopia had a lot of maize. And instead of moving maize from Kitale to Marsabit or Wajir, we decided to buy from
Ethiopia.
We said we open, let people move with their maize, we buy, we make it a depot for maize buying, although it was a depot for maize storage. And that is the maize that we distributed in that region. It does not need a lot of complicated science. It needs just being unselfish about the situation of maize. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet. Throughout the period I was Minister for Agriculture, we imported only 1 million bags. And it was because these cartels put pressure on me. It was headline in almost every paper that there is shortage of maize. I briefed the president. At some stage, I realized I was losing his confidence. So we decided with my officers, let us import but a limited amount of maize, but we frustrated the process because we knew we are going to have good harvest at the end of the year.
These cartels, Mheshimiwa, how do they operate? You are Kibaki's agriculture minister.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So all these matters that we are talking about, you understand them very well.
Yep.
How do these cartels operate? How is it that they would also be able to get the ear of the president and convince him in a certain direction?
You know, Eric, cartels, just like they are human beings and they have their own network. And they behave in a way that it is so seamless and it looks so natural. The information from NIS will be coming to the president that there is famine situation, information from OP and what they call special programs at that time is coming, there is famine, information from all departments. So I went to see the president one Friday with my peers at that time. I think it was Ongwae, and Tirop Koske was the managing director of National Cereals and Produce Board. We briefed the president. Then he asked me one question, because you brief him, The officers back you up. He asked me one question. If we went to those places, are we likely to see the maize? I told him, yes, sir. Then I made a fatal mistake. I said, but you know, the media has been highlighting there is no maize, which is not true. Then he told me, kama tungekuwa na hayo makaratasi, tungeandika hiyo. So I knew I've lost the president. So I quickly retreated. I told him, sir, let me come back on Tuesday. He told me, yes, we will be here. So come back. So that is when we connived now to import only 1 million bags, because we knew any importation to be done in August will find us when we are harvesting.
Already harvesting.
In October, November. So that's how we conspired. It was a conspiracy that I felt it was to assist this nation. But all the stories and the people imported are the ones now who found themselves in a serious scandal.
And when you imported the maize, the stories changed in the media.
It changed, but
and the reports that were reaching the president were different.
Yeah, they were different, because you see, by the time they were talking, that maize was landing in Mombasa, the story was now different. That Kirwa is importing, has allowed importation when the maize is being harvested in the North Rift. So I was in double trouble. Perhaps that's why part of the reason why I lost my seat.
When you look at now the situation that we are seeing, what do you think is happening? Number one, of course, there is maize shortage in the country. There is no doubt about that, right? But the question is about the importation, because the agriculture CS now says we are going to open up the importation window, not just for maize but for grains. So we are looking at on maize and other grains as well. Do you think the cartels are at play?
The cartels are in town. And what I would request, and this is what I would propose to the government of the day, is to ensure that this importation is managed in the way that we don't bring a glut of importation that will depress. Because you see, Eric, there are 4 seasons in Kenya, 4 harvesting seasons. There is the South Rift, which includes parts of Nyanza. There is the North Rift, which is the main harvesting area. There is also the coast and some parts of central Kenya. So it is sort of cyclic. Right now, we would have expected we'd be getting maize from eastern area, like Machakos, Makueni, but of course the crop has failed. This is the time now, and that is what the importation is coming to fill in. But if the rain will start, by July, we'll be having harvest from the South Rift and some parts of Nyanza. And if we have too much, at that particular time, the millers will not be interested in your maize from the South Rift and even from Nyanza. And therefore, the prices will be depressed and the farmers will run into some serious losses. And that may spill over to the maize that we ought to harvest now from the coast much later, and of course, the North Rift. So when this problem starts, like if you are late for a meeting in the morning, usually you'll be late for the rest of the meeting, the rest of the day.
If you don't manage yourself well.
If you don't manage yourself or even skip some of the meetings. I've realized it's like a curse. That's why I came here early.
Very good. Let's take a break on that note. 8:30, Kipruto Arap Kirwa is a former Minister for Agriculture, former Minister in the Kibaki administration. He is also a seasoned politician, started in the very early days, the multi-party push, being in the opposition benches and being also in government. And now he is one who sits back and talks as an elder.
Thank you.
He's here to talk to us as an elder and asking ourselves, are our leaders who are all in all positions of political leadership focusing too much on partisan politics at the expense of governance and at the expense of what is affecting Kenyans? That's a conversation we'll be coming back to. Remember, fly better with Emirates. Kipruto will tell you that he's flown Emirates. He'll also tell you that he's flown business Emirates. And as you can see him smiling, it's because he remembers the kind of experience he's had flying. The good times up there in the sky. You forget that you're up there in the sky. You think you're in some hotel somewhere. And you forget that you're not yet at your destination.
And you sleep very well.
And you sleep very well.
And at times you wonder where my late mother is. Because when you're in the skies, you wonder, where am I?
Is this heaven?
I don't know.
Is this what it feels like?
Is this it? If I'm here, could this be halfway to heaven? Remember, if you're thinking of flying, fly first class, fly business, fly better with Emirates.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry. Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
19 and sunny in Nairobi. We'll go to highs of 28 today, and we'll see highs of 31 in Nakuru. It will be quite warm as well in Nyeri, going to highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 28 in Eldoret. 32 will be the high in Mombasa, and we'll see highs of 31 in Malindi. 32 and sunny is what it will be in Kisumu today. It will go to highs of 33 in Kakamega. It's 19 and sunny in Kampala, 28 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. Johannesburg is looking at sunny conditions through to highs of 27, and Lagos will see highs of 33. 33 will also be the high in Kinshasa, where it's cloudy this morning at 25.
Spice up your life.
Okay, by George, don't know what's going on Waiaki Way this morning, but folks have been in traffic for at least half an hour, and not a half an hour of the good kind, the one where you are standing still. There is no movement. I'm not quite sure what's going on. There must be something cooking up ahead. What's going on, guys? Can you let us know so we can inform folks? So if you're headed into Westlands, coming in from Waiaki Way, up ahead Kangemi, you might want to think about using the Red Hill Link Road. It'll take you further round, but it'll stop you from being in this mess that is traffic. So we're still looking for answers in terms of what's happening there, but think about using the Red Hill Link Road out of the mess that is Waiaki Way. All right, what else is going on? We're seeing some traffic coming in from Gong Road, but not too crazy. Into the city then from the Thika Superhighway. It's getting easier by the minute. Kiambu Road, not as clogged as it was before. We'll keep an eye on things. Let's know what's going on, guys, so we can inform guys which way to go. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation continues with Kiputo Rapkira Ndu.
Yes. So here we are, and we can be prescriptive in all of what needs to happen in government today. But what are we saying? That there is a choice, and it's the hard. I believe that if there's a desire to do something, that you can actually do it and have it done right. In the midst of all of this, geographically, there's nothing you can do to change the situ of Kenya. You know that there's going to be drought. But are we saying that you can then desire to do things better? Whether we're looking at corruption today, whether we're looking at a drought situation tomorrow, whether we're looking at, the cost of living being through the roof. Are you saying then, Weshimiwa, that it is about the decision you make to make things better that would matter in all of this?
Well, let me put it this way. Like our good writer, Chinua Achebe, said, that Africa enjoys a variety of things. plenty of good people, plenty of rains, very good climate, and generally well placed geographically to deal with the rest of the world. But the main problem with Africa is leadership. Anything that visits any country cannot be said to be beyond the capacity of leaders, because also God intervenes when you help yourself. But what I read about many leaders in Kenya is that whenever there is a disaster, it is a time for them to harvest. I remember when I was in the ministry, anytime there was quelea birds and even armyworms, or even any infestation by some of the vagaries that visit our crops, you would find people moving in the corridor so fast because it's a chance to do procurement, and this is a procurement of medicine to kill these insects or birds, or to manage them. And this therefore means it's a period to harvest. They don't look at the disaster that is likely to befall the country. They look at the opportunity to harvest from that particular misfortune. So my take is, we cannot blame anybody on the drought, but how you manage the drought is very important. And that's why we are saying it is not beyond any regime to mobilize its own resources to ensure that the people of Kenya do not face the kind of disaster we are facing. Even the 2.5 million livestock that died, we could have mobilized hay. This is what the Honorable Joseph Munyao did when we were sharing the Ministry of Agriculture as Minister for Livestock Development. We bought hay, took to the farmers, because initially we were giving the farmers maize with the hope that they are going to eat. Then we realized they were feeding their livestock. Then we said, let us get food for livestock. We bought hay and we subsidized, and we took to the farmers for us to save the crop. And at some stage we are doing what we call off-take. You buy from the farmer, you feed it, you sell it, even at a throwaway price. What Red Cross has been doing in Kenya.
Sure. Do you think that could have happened in this period right here that we're talking about? Just the last hour, we heard some astronomical figures of livestock that have been, whatever, those that have been stolen. But then during the drought period, in the hour before that, what are we looking at? What was it, CT?
2.5 million.
2.5 million.
Yeah,
2.6 million head of cattle that have died, not the ones that have been stolen, died.
In 3 months.
In 3 months.
In 3 months.
Do you think that this mitigation that you're talking about could have happened and happened successfully with things the way they currently are today?
That should have happened. That's why I'm talking about the reality and the situation that it is. The real situation should have been, not the real situation, the ideal situation should have been 1, 2, 3. But the reality is that it's not happening. You see a lot of hay all over this country, even some from Uganda and even some from Tanzania. Why didn't we do that in good time to save livestock? There's a young man in Kajiado. I passed and I was told, this young man had 150 head of cattle. I counted whatever is left in his boma, there are 12. So in terms of the economy of the people, that is a huge part of our GDP. That's why our GDP growth at the end of this season, unless you infuse it from other considerations, we have lost from the agriculture sector.
Drought has always been a factor that this country has grappled with. We argue that this particular season of drought is the worst we've had in about over 40 years.
Yeah.
Now, in the time when you were Minister for Agriculture, what are some of the gains that the ministry put in place? One, to secure our pastoral communities against drought, that's number one. Two, in terms of simply having the forethought and planning to ensure that in the seasons of plenty, we have a buffer for that very day when we don't have that. What systems did you put in place? And of those systems, how many of them are still operational? And what else could have been done to ensure that the drought that we have now, even if it existed, would not have had the terrible negative impact that it currently has?
What we did, we turned what they call strategic grain reserve into what we call strategic food reserve. Why were we calling it that way? So that the animal products are also kept in a way that we are able to cushion the consumer and the farmer. Because what happens at times is when you produce a lot of milk, the prices plummet. And that gives you a loss that you may not be able to recover and take care of your stock when there is need for money to be infused or to be injected into livestock production. So what we did was buy more from the farmer, store it in certain conditions, including powdered milk and so forth. Ensure that the farmer is encouraged to do what we call offtake. Because you see, farming for some communities like livestock farming is more cultural than economic. So the more livestock I have, the more prestigious I'm likely to be considered in society. But we were trying to encourage them that sell it to us before the drought comes. Because there is a system done by IGAD, which is called early warning system, that warns you that at this particular time, there will be a drought. And this drought, this is the magnitude of the drought. And if you realize the farmers are going to be vulnerable, you make sure that you offtake from them. The second issue is what I've just mentioned a few minutes ago, that you provide hay to the farmers so that they are able to feed their livestock. The hay can be bought by the farmers, or when they are in dire conditions, you provide that hay for them. That you will be able to salvage the livestock and cross over from a period of drought to a period of plenty or a period of rain. The third issue that we instituted was to improve the stock. And at that time, we were keeping 8 million bags of maize so that we create this buffer that is required, because there is no time that you will have enough maize throughout the season. So what you do, you stock it, about 8 million, because Kenyans consume, each one of us on average, there are people who eat more. We consume 100 kilos of maize per year. And therefore, if you have 50 million Kenyans, you need 50 million bags of maize on average. And therefore, if you harvest 40 million like what we harvested last year, you need about 10 million bags to cushion. But if you have 8 million stored in under National Cereals and Produce Board, you release to the market instead of importing. Then you encourage what we call cross-border business. And from Tanzania and from Uganda. Uganda usually does it earlier than Tanzania. Then the third issue is that to improve the conditions for farmers maize stored. We did what we were calling warehouse receipting. That you bring your maize, we store it for you. The time you want it, we release it. Just the way you take your money to the bank, the day you want the money, you go and you declare.
How successful was this?
It worked for the period I was there. But when I left, I don't know what happened. And it's no longer there. National Cereals and Produce Board, I don't know how many bags of maize, perhaps 100,000 on their side.
But when you talk about, I'm thinking of the pastoral communities, the areas in which they live and who are the hardest hit by this drought.
Yeah.
Apart from simply buying their livestock,
yes,
what about the value addition? I mean, the previous government talked about value addition, building abattoirs, which we were told were built but don't really function. I mean, we had Kenya meat.
Yeah.
What sense did it make for livestock to travel all the way from wherever they come from to a place when a similar facility could actually have been established in the very place?
Yeah.
Okay. If you talk about tea, where tea is grown, tea is processed in the areas it is grown.
That's it.
Yeah, you don't transport the tea to some far-flung area for it to be processed. Now, the same with cattle. I mean, why was this logic not used? Because I believe if the value addition had been offered or presented to these communities, they would have been better off.
You know, that actually, I don't know what happened to abattoirs. We started, the former Minister Munyao started that, and I think the Uhuru regime also did part of it. But I don't know why they are not operating. But you see, Muga, the main problem with Kenya is lack of effective governance.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
We are corrupt. We are simply corrupt.
So we build an abattoir and then we don't Operationalize it.
Yes, just like many hospitals that we have. There are no drugs. There are many hospitals all over. In fact, it is faith-based hospitals that cushion the people.
Public health system.
Yeah, our public health system. Because it's corruption.
Just like private schools cushion the education system.
And in Rwanda, it's the other way around. Nobody goes to private schools. Private schools are crying for children. But here, private schools are more popular, especially at the primary level. You see, even it's going to be private universities are better than public universities because 6 billion debt in our universities is making universities almost die. And yet, you have almost out of 38 public universities, you have 12 of them with acting vice chancellors. That's why they were advertising the other day, and deputy vice chancellors. Why are we saying the private universities are doing better? It's because of just management. You don't need to have a professor of medicine running University of Nairobi. You need somebody who has some basic management. He can be a professor, but he must have basic management. Running a university is not like operating in a theater. It is different. Unless we infuse the best brains to run our universities, we are going to be doing whatever we providing whatever capitation. Why aren't we making these universities do research? And we encourage them, the research they do is paid for by institutions within even the country. Many universities abroad, that is how, I've never gone to any university abroad. I've just done my degrees here in these local universities, but the knowledge I have is when you go to University of Minnesota, professors are retained on the basis of the research funding they attract. If you are a good professor and you are attracting research funding, you are retained by the university. That's the basis of you being useful to the university. Why are we pretending? And these guys, many of these people, they went to universities abroad. And they know this to be the truth. I know our president anyway did not go to any university abroad just like me. But he's got this knowledge. But are we killing these universities so that we buy land? Like Egerton University, with more than 3,000 acres of land, worth about 20 billion. We're almost killing it. Is it because we want to buy the land? This is a problem that it is corruption.
This seems to be the song that has been sung for the longest time.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that we keep asking the question about. That is there a desire to get rid of it? Is there a desire to do the right thing? Is there a desire to get rid of the cancer that continues to bring about the wrong thing? And if that is not the case, then would you say that the wrong people are sitting in and have been sitting in positions of leadership?
The problem that I see in our country and in the rest of Africa is that tribalism is still a factor of politics. And today, if I come from community A and I steal, nobody from that community will frown upon me, because we've not been able to internalize the fact that the government is an animal in our midst, that we need to nurture it and make it work for us. The government is still an alien body, and anybody stealing from government is appropriating resources to be owned by one of us. The way we used to raid communities as Kalenjins to get livestock into our midst, you became a hero. The way Sir Charles Drake, who was a pirate, was knighted by the king, is the way we were knighting our leaders. We are still knighting them. That any thief,
if you go out there and
yes,
you
and you come with something,
bring the spoils home.
Yes, you are doing well. That's why there are some governors who are said, bring us our thief. And they went ahead to elect the person. So at times, if we are to use the issue of corruption against this regime, where the two top leaders come from, they will not see it as a problem. They are appropriating resources to one of them, and therefore the community will be safer if one of us has some lagis that he can dispense with whenever we run short of resources. That is the truth. Number two, even Raya themselves, they are corrupt. You cannot go for an election, Eric, if you want to be a governor of the region where you come from, if you don't have 50 million or more. You'll be stoned, you'll be heckled.
Billion.
You need 50 million on the lower side. 50 million on the lower side. Those early days, even with 1 million, you could win an election. Today, if you want to be an MP, if I want to be an MP in Cherangani, I need no less than 20 million shillings. So you have the choice, either to invest the 20 million or you go and burn it and you may not win.
And you're saying the voter is to blame because the voter is the one who demands this 20 million.
They demand and they don't care where you've gotten. Even as retired as I am, with my little pension from Parliament, when I go home, they expect me to provide some resources. At times I ask them, where do you expect? They say, no, you have so many friends. So I don't know whether Muga will give me resources to take off.
You didn't see that coming, City.
No, I didn't see that. That caught me off guard completely. But Mheshimiwa, let me ask you this question. Yeah. It's a personal question.
Yeah.
You were vice chairman of UDA.
Deputy chair.
Sorry.
Yeah,
you were deputy chair of UDA.
Yes.
And you left.
Yes.
And went to Azimio.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's a good question. I will answer you because I've answered in other studios. I will answer you. I joined UDA believing that I have not been with William for 20 years. You remember we parted ways in 2002. I moved from Kanu to NAC. And he remained in Kanu. They went ahead, they lost the 2002 elections. In 2007, I was still in PNU, he was in ODM. You know what happened. 2013, when I came back from Addis Ababa, I joined Musalia Mudavadi, ANC, and I went ahead to lose the election for Senate Trans Nzoia. And 2017, I ran again on another ticket. And by then, William Ruto was a sitting deputy president. So in between, I was doing a bit of soul searching. And I was saying, okay, this young man, because he's a young man compared to me, I'm not demeaning him. He's 10 years younger than me. So I was saying, this young man has tried. He was smarter than me. Because he was smarter, he decided to join ODM when he knew ODM was the wave with our community. I stuck with Kibaki. That's how I lost my seat. I said, let me join him.
So you're saying the president joined ODM because he understood that it was the wave that the community he comes from supported?
Yeah. Actually, the people told him, we have already moved. I don't know, they talked of a place in Nandi towards Kisumu. So he was told, we are just approaching Kisumu town. You know that place near Riyadh?
Yes.
Yeah, we are approaching Kisumu. So he followed them. You remember there was a bit of funny stories in the run-up to 2013. Him meeting Kalonzo, meeting Musalia, and it became headline stories. If you just jog your mind, you'll remember that. But it was a strategic thing because he was not keen to join Raila at that time. But he realized through other people, Henry Koskei, the late Mr. Jackson Kibor, the community, the late Kipkalia Kones, the community had already moved. So he quickly followed them, he overtook them, and he became part of the Pentagon. So he was smarter than me. I stuck with PNU, being loyal to Kibaki. So I lost an opportunity to be part of the leadership of my community. He was ahead of me. 2013, they were able to galvanize the forces against the Hague. So he created a monster in the Hague, and that is the monster that allowed them and Uhuru to win the presidency. So I said, okay, this guy has beaten me more than 3 times. Why don't I join him? I joined him and we worked for 2 years. Very well. I cannot blame it on him. We worked very well because I was a deputy chair and I was telling him, I believe in strong political parties. Which I strongly still believe in strong political parties. But the parties must be organic. Fast forward, we are juggling with the issue of the deputy president.
The running mate.
The running mate. And before the running mate, I go to him. I remember we were in Western from 10 o'clock up to midnight, telling him, if Musalia and Wetangula are not with you, the optics are not right. We were 5 of us. I don't know, William was there, and there were 3 other people, and I. By midnight, he said, yes, I take your story. That was in November 2021. November 2021. Fast forward, you know what happened, the tsunami and all that. So I was instrumental in doing that because I believed the only way you must create the right optics. I told him without Western, you look like a lone ranger. Central Kenya is okay with you, but without Western, the optics are not right. That happened, and that was the beginning of my problems. I did not realize I was not part of the system. I was fought so bitterly by my own people, most of them Kalenjins. Then the issue of running mate came. I was for Kindiki myself. Other people were for Alice Wahome. Others were for Muturi, JB Muturi. Others were for even Ndindi Nyoro. Now that Sunday, when he picked Rigathi, I did not realize that I had not stood. Everybody stood and clapped. Because of my age, my weight, and poor eyesight, I was not able to stand in good time. I was devastated. Then the following morning, Mother Karua was picked by Raila Odinga. I realized I don't belong to the team that I was with yesterday. I belong to this team. And when I did a lot of scanning, I realized out of all Kibaki ministers, Kibaki won. I was the only one.
Who was on the other side.
And I don't regret. I'm still happy that, yes, I'm in the opposition. And really, possibly I would not have offered anything to him. He has the best professionals, better than me, in terms of academic excellence. And possibly I would have been the wrong person in the herd.
You think you'd have been the wrong voice?
Well, I think I would have been a square peg in a round hole. So I don't regret. I'm happy.
Kibruto Arap Kirwa, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our time is short. So you're on the other side now again. William Ruto has beaten you for the 7th time?
Yeah, I lost the count.
Thank you for joining us. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. It's 9 a.m. Time for the news.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga. The Supreme Court will today give directions in a case in which pensioners seek to stop the state from effecting the National Social Security Fund contributions. Last month, the matter had come up in court where the Supreme Court's Registrar Bernard Kasavuli directed the parties in the case to file the required documents before this morning. The County Pensioners Association moved to the Supreme Court following a decision by the Court of Appeal that set the motion for the NSSF to increase workers' monthly deductions from March 9th, which is Thursday this week. The NSSF Act increases monthly contributions to the NSSF by 98%. That is from 200 shillings to 2,160 Kenya shillings. The Act provides for further increases in subsequent years. The Kenya National Union of Teachers now wants teachers who've been forced to come in and assist junior secondary school learners compensated. Not SG Collins OU says that some teachers have been forced to teach primary and JSS learners due to the current shortage. OU adds that thousands of their members are qualified to teach in schools as they've been trained, and the Teachers Service Commission should therefore hire them to address the shortage. He adds that the syllabus has been affected by this shortage. In February this year, TSC hired 10,000 teachers and more than 23,000 public schools only received 1 or 2 teachers. Anglican Judge of Kitale Bishop Emmanuel Chemengich says that same-sex unions are against the biblical scriptures, the Constitution, as well as our African values. Chemengich has said that those who don't want to marry or get married voluntarily or to protect their faith, then they should be single instead of engaging themselves in same-sex relationships.
The General Synod of the Church of England makes legislation for the Church of England, and the resolutions apply only to the Church of England. Whereas we in the Anglican Church of Kenya are saddened by the departure of our mother church from the true gospel, the resolutions do not apply to us, and we do not recognize any teaching that is extra-biblical or contrary to the teachings of the Bible. We affirm that marriage is taught in the Holy Scriptures as between one man and one woman, is monogamous, and is heterosexual. Any deviation from this God-designed covenant relationship is sinful and unacceptable. If there are people who are not called to marriage and are faithful followers of Christ, let them embrace celibacy.
Now, the police should focus more on Turkana bandits who are still using guns to attack Pokot community. Pokot South lawmaker David Kosing alleges that the recent attack that happened during the weekend that saw 2 boys killed and 2,000 herds of cattle stolen was actually an operation done by Turkana bandits.
This is a belt, so you would find about even more than 5,000 animals and cows grazing. There's no other place where they graze. And therefore, it's very unfortunate. The Pokot on this side, which are peaceful, and listen to government. When the government told them, no, now we are around this operation, so what happened? The Pokot decided just to be peaceful and graze the animals using walking sticks. Kumbe, and then the Turkanas were actually organizing a serious raid. But who else would have come in that area? That's the border of Pokot and Turkana. Who else? Pokot don't raid any other Pokot. These are only Turkanas. And in fact, we know where they drop the animals to. First of all, the army are there. Operation is going on. And then Turkanas had an opportunity to organize themselves and move in that large numbers without being noticed by the army or the police.
Kosing further says that the strong police operation has failed to work in the region due to their model of operation.
And on Saturday evening, they drove them to a kind of a big village in Turkana. And the police knew, and the army knew. In fact, when they attacked during the day. The army had to be called in. But those Turkana bandits overpowered the army. In fact, there was a military chopper on that Saturday that was trying to rescue these animals. Can you imagine? That kind of model of operation and sending army will not work. Reactionary method of sending army to quell certain things like now what's going on cannot work. But I was trying to emphasize at that point that little did the Pokot community knew that there was army and therefore there was peace. We didn't know that actually the Turkanas were taking advantage and organizing themselves. It's terrible. And they overpowered the army and drove away the 2,000 animals.
And in the international scene, Britain's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have received an invitation to his father's King Charles coronation, but are yet to confirm publicly whether they'll attend. Preparations for the event in May have been overshadowed by the couple's damning revelations about the King, Harry's elder brother Prince William, and other royals in his recent memoir. Judging by what happened when the King asked them to vacate their house in the United Kingdom last week, it's not certain whether Prince will accept the invitation. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so still that problem coming in from Kangemi between Kangemi and Westlands. So again, the Red Hill Link Road, like you never used it, today is going to be the savior for a lot of folks today until we find out what exactly is going on there, or at least until that situation is clear. We're looking at traffic still happening on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, also looking at it tight, then coming off of parts of Ngong Road, and then looking also on Limuru Road in from Gigiri. There's a little bit of traffic here and there. We should be out of it in no time. Coming into 9:30, we should be fine. Let's keep an eye on things. Remember, talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your...
It is 7 minutes after 9. Yeah, on the day before the 7th of March, 2023. Yeah. The conversation continues. We are here until 10 o'clock. And we have a new guest in the studio. Odhiambo Ramogi is an economist. He's from Elim Capital. He's been here before. We want to talk about the shilling and the depreciation and what it's doing to the economy. You know, nobody noticed this. None of us did until Andrew Franklin has noticed it. When Ednah was doing the thing with our social media flyers yesterday, she wrote that Odhiambo Ramogi is coming to talk about how the US dollar shortage will impact Kenya's economy.
Yes. Many thanks to Franklin.
He's noticed. Ednah noticed. None of us noticed. Hey, Andrew, don't be so keen on these things, Bwana.
Andrew, continue being keen.
It was actually no. It wasn't a mistake. It was designed that way because we're talking about money and our economy and the money. This is the intention, and that's why Odhiambo is here.
Really?
Yes. Good morning, Odhiambo.
Good morning.
Good to have you again on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Now, CT has the week's proverbs this week will be from the country of Rwanda.
Yes.
Looking forward to that.
Has a prime minister called who again?
The Prime Minister of Rwanda is called Edward Girente. And a question was asked in the last hour.
Yes.
Do they have an office of the First Lady? They do. You see, what I did...
First Lady, yes. No. Well, the question was whether there's office of the spouse of the Prime Minister.
No, that office doesn't exist.
No? They need to.
Yes. But the office of the First Lady exists. Oh, and does it just?
It should.
See, among the things that the First Lady's office has... well, put it in a supportive role of uplifting the lives of the vulnerable. Okay,
that's good.
She's held the distinguished position of being the UNAIDS Special Ambassador for Adolescent Health and Well-being, co-founder of the Organization of Africa First Ladies. Okay, against HIV/AIDS, served as president from 2004 to 2006, patron of SOS Children's Village, WHO High Commission for Africa for HIV/AIDS vaccine program. I mean, those are very many posts. Yes, you might argue maybe the Prime Minister, the First Lady, or the wife of the
spouse of the Prime Minister,
spouse of probably could get a share of this because these things are many.
Now they need to establish her own office
with specific things.
Yes. The office of the spouse of the Prime Minister
has a place in government.
Yes.
All right.
What's a proverb?
That's Rwanda. This is Kenya. In a court of fowls, a cockroach never wins his case.
But Ramogi, do you understand this proverb?
Yes. Proverbs are supposed to be understood from your context. From my context, it means, therefore, that where you are being judged absent of representation, don't expect justice. Because especially if the person judging you is in fact the person who eats you. If I can put it crudely.
If your judge is bound to benefit from your incarceration,
yes,
definitely expect incarceration. Hiya. You're here because we want to talk about what's been happening in the country. We saw the headlines in the papers on Friday, and they were raising the issue of an apparent dollar shortage in the market. Of course, this is a conversation that has been there for a while. We've seen the shilling tank, and it's gone beyond 130, approaching 140 to the dollar. And against other major currencies as well, it's doing the same. Even against the currencies within the East African community, doing still the same. The question is there a shortage of dollars, as we saw in the papers?
Yes, there is a shortage of dollars.
And by shortage, what do we mean?
The country is part of the international community with the standard that we should have at least 3 months of supply of dollars sufficient for imports. So that if, for example, we import using around, say, $2 billion in a month, then our dollar reserves should be around $6 billion at the least. In January, that figure had come down to around 3.9 months supply of dollars. And it is evident now that we have passed the threshold of 3 months. I haven't looked at the figures for February yet. Because there is already evidence of this lack or scarcity of the same, with banks unable to provide dollars. They are, in fact, rationing. So if you went to a bank and you said, I want $10,000 for import or for any other purpose that is well recognized in law, they tell you, we do not have 10,000, we are able to give you 5,000. And these are the bigger banks. If you got 10,000, you are a lucky one. So you find then that it is accurate to say that there is a dollar shortage. We've been here before. Last year, you remember that Pwani Oil closed for a while because they could not access dollars to import their inputs. As late as December, there are already some complaints around it. So yes, it is accurate to say that there is dollar shortage.
Is this to actually talk about CBK breaching this dollar importation reserves?
Yes, and I have said...
Has CBK actually confirmed that they have gone below?
They haven't. And that's why, for now, it is sufficient to say the evidence on the ground say there is a dollar shortage. The official communication we got as early as January is that we are doing fine. We have 3.9 months. But there is a dollar shortage. The banks are saying they are unable to do their interbank trading that they usually do around dollars because everybody is hoarding the little they have. The clients that go to banks to ask for dollars are saying we are unable to access the amount of money we need to buy things internationally to bring into the country. And so the evidence is pointing to a dollar shortage. The official communication, however, hasn't come in the affirmative or the negative.
What would be the cause of this?
This would be perhaps from an opinion. And as you have rightly pointed out, it is not the official position of the country. There are several reasons why we are here. One is the fact that we are an importing nation. Generally, we have not put in place mechanisms to export, to produce sufficiently for export. This administration came into power with the promise of two things: agriculture and MSMEs. MSMEs, it was our hope that there will be significant investment in manufacturing, cottage industries, the kind that would sufficiently provide for the local economy and even export to the region. At the same time, agriculture would reduce our reliance on imported food. If you look at the inflation figures for December and January, you'll realize that the highest contribution is the fuel inflation and the food inflation. And fuel is imported. Food is also imported. And so that tells you that the inflation is being fueled by imports and by extension by the foreign exchange rate, which has gotten out of control. And so I think our import regime has made us get where we are. But at the same time, there is also a responsibility in place of the government of the day, because we have opened the doors and we said duty-free imports of sugar, maize, cooking oil, etc., rice. So some people are swimming in money right now, because when you say duty-free imports, they are importing. And when you import, what do you use to import? The dollar that actually is in shortage right now. So I think that has also significantly contributed. Earlier on, and one of the reasons why perhaps some people were uncomfortable with the Chinese involvement in retail is there were rumors, and this is now rumors, just that the Chinese are very particular about collecting dollars, and that a lot of their investment here, they were taking the dollars back home, and so that contributed because they had made significant investment. But that hasn't been established. If you ask me, I think the major reason, imports.
The spread, the gap between what we are buying the dollar at and what you sell the dollar at. You look at how much the CBK, quotes as the exchange rate versus what the market is actually quoting as exchange rate. There's huge discrepancies in those.
Yeah.
But why would it be so wide? What would lead to that kind of a widespread?
Partly is demand. You see, for example, if there is more demand than there is supply. Ordinarily the bank would want to make a kill out of it and say, all right, we are buying at 127 and giving out at 137. And if it's a bit uncomfortable a subject and unfair.
Why? Take another deep breath.
I'm not taking it. Let me put it this way. There is more and more growing literature around capitalism having a heart. Now, that's a long discussion. But yes, you need to have return on investment. Yes, you need to take advantage of opportunities in the market. But banks in this country are making super profits in an economy that is not performing very well. Part of the problem we have around Forex was because of the excitement of banks around it a few years back. And several bank CEOs were caught in the act of just unfair trading around Forex. I think that spread is too big. I think it's a bit unfair. I think it's just capital at work, but at least have a heart in it.
Look, there's also been growing literature on the subject of what we call borrowing. The government simply borrowing from our financial institutions, the literature states, and thereby reducing the possibility of more money being available for circulation within the country, meaning more money, less money being available for business people who would like to borrow, people who would otherwise use that money locally for spurring this story we keep talking about, economic growth.
Absolutely.
There is that literature, okay?
Yes.
Now, the bank understand profit, and lending to the government is safe. You have some guaranteed returns, very, very good percentage. Now, when you talk about that level of borrowing, and we know full well that the bulk of the money that banks have are actually from people. It's not really their own. It's other people's money, as we keep saying.
Yeah.
Now, how do you write this situation? Because we are talking about government efforts. When if we believe that literature, then we would say that the government is sabotaging itself.
So I want to at least separate two things.
Yes.
Foreign exchange rate and the interest rate. the foreign exchange rate and the spread he's talking about alludes to when a bank buys dollars from, say, Ramogi, who was in New York for 2 days, came back with dollars, and he sells it, and the bank sells it to C.T. Muga, who probably wants to travel to New York. And they buy from Ramogi at 127 and sell to Muga at 137. So that spread is what I was saying is a bit unfair. What you are alluding to is on the other end of the whole question of interest rate and crowding out. Now, yes, our interest rates have been a subject of discussion. Again, with the banks charging a bit too expensive to the extent that the political community is uncomfortable, and the general Kenyan community was uncomfortable with their high interest rates. And so there was the attempt to bring interest rate capping that failed miserably. And the whole circus around it is because government insists on borrowing from banks, as you have correctly alluded to, and thereby now crowding out small, high-risk players like, say, an MSME. Now, is that fair? I think that now is a problem with the government. But you see, borrowing internationally also, they have borrowed from the Chinese, and it has somehow affected our sovereignty in terms of, for example, when they borrowed on the SGR, and then the Chinese can now just come and run your whole SGR, and perhaps even ask for a bath at the course, at the port, and they are okay. And now, of course, there is the whole conversation around them doing retail in the country, and so borrowing internationally is okay, but many governments prefer to borrow locally because of the whole question of more borrowing leads to reduced sovereignty. Now, the bigger question, and I'm finishing, the bigger question then is, should the government borrow as much as it has? And that now leads us to the question of deficits and surplus. Yes, you are.
But there's also a link between that borrowing and the repayment period and the exchange rate.
Yes, there is.
Right? Because we are now at the point when the government is actually now needed to pay a lot of the debt. And of course, it pays in those foreign currencies, primarily the dollar. So it is sending out more dollars
than
to repay the debt. We are not importing as much. We are only relying on Kenyans in the diaspora to send us the dollar. And
we are not exporting as much.
Oh, yeah, we are not exporting as much. The little coffee and tea and flowers that we are selling. And so that also creates the strain and the stress on the dollar reserves.
Absolutely. 60% of our loan book, especially the international loan book, is in dollars. And so you'd expect that repayment of it would be heavy on the government.
It's in dollars.
Yeah.
You see, let me explain to you where my argument is coming from. Increased economic activity means this thing we keep calling the GDP of the country goes up. All right? It increases. If it increases, it means simply that there is actually more money. So when the government borrows, internally, locally, it's in shillings. Now, if the money borrowed is in shillings, because the money we use here is shillings, it means the volatility of our currency against the dollar, which now puts our debt repayment in complete jeopardy. If we borrowed when the dollar was 100 bob per shilling, to the shilling, 100 shillings other to the dollar, and now it's 122. When will we ever really be able to repay this money? Because the interest alone keeps going up. You never even get to the principal.
Yeah.
Especially when the money that has been borrowed is not directly pegged to development. And for development, for me here, I'm talking about when you're buffering your industry, when you're talking about manufacturing. Can we not get to the point where we say, forget about being able to manage things like this when you are not manufacturing, when you are not making profits, when you do not have surplus? Forget about then being able to manage these things the way you talk about. When we look at these countries who are able to do that and negotiate and pay their debt, when they have debts huge in terms of percentages. But if you look at their manufacturing agenda and if you look at their local industries, it's incomparable.
Yep.
So is that not what we're saying now? Until you get to the point whereby you have a surplus mechanism in place, where you have a manufacturing and your industry are actually more than the tea and coffee and flowers that we're talking about. Forget about it. We can be talking about this until the cows come home. Until and unless you're manufacturing, unless you're making your own and selling and you have a surplus, you cannot be talking about taking loans willy-nilly. Let's talk about something else.
So let me pick it up from there and get to Jerusalem at some point. You are accurate in terms of the preference to borrow locally and the problem we have with the international loans, especially the demand and the pressure it places on the dollars. And so on that one, we are in agreement. I think what she is alluding to is perhaps where I'm heading towards, which is exports, and more exports. If you look, there has been an open rumor, let me start from there, that there is intentional devaluation of our currency to increase exports. This is interesting because we are borrowing a strategy that the Chinese put to use very efficiently. And even, I think, the Japanese at some point. Now, there are two missing ingredients, and she's pointed to one of them. The first one is that these people had huge reserves of the dollar. So
already?
Yes. So that at any given time, should they feel like we are losing control of the currency or this thing is not working as we want it to,
the
they show back their currency by just using the dollar. And they remain in control at any given time. We are not there. We are not even in terms of a comfortable margin beyond the bare minimum of 3 months, to the point where we can now say, in case things go south with the currency as it is, then we can show up the shilling, as should be the case. The second problem we have is that we are out to promote exports, yes. But which exports?
Where are they?
Because
you're not making them.
We are not even feeding ourselves, leave alone even many things. Are we even able to feed ourselves as a country? Are we able to, for example, make earbuds in the country, matchbox in the country? And that brings us now to the whole question of, I saw a very nice and elaborate work plan laid out by the Ministry of Trade and Industrialization about how they want to promote exports. It was beautiful done. The graphics were awesome. But now it was only on the marketing side. There was hardly any strategy, any thought, any work plan in terms of how do we promote cottage industries, local industries, in a way then that we can, for example, now think, how do we market what we have?
Can I ask, what were they marketing?
No, they were marketing Kenyan products.
Which one?
It was just general, that we want to increase our exports to this level. And I think the first strategy that I saw there that looked like they wanted to promote production was to put in place industrial parks.
Ramogi, let me just...
But you see...
just hold that thought for a second. Just hold it. Don't move away from it.
Okay.
Our greatest export is human resource. Okay? Why are they also marketing this? Because it is by far the most successful export that we actually have in the country.
No, I did not see anywhere.
Precise. I will now hold my thought. I'll continue with it. Please say what you're saying.
Yeah, I wanted to say investment in industrial parks is not equivalent to promoting exports. Those are...
It's a beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See,
just
let me show you. If we create industrial parks like we have done, and we promote them, and then we send Moses Kuria to the Middle East, and he attracts FDI, those people come and invest here. So where is the manufacturing going to be now?
Here.
It's going to be here. So what are we going to be exporting? We have products to export. See? Think long term. Long game, Bana. Just...
If only what?
If only our actions
mirrored a fraction,
even a fraction
of what we say. Just a fraction.
Little bit.
But it's there. As we speak, Moses Kuria, Chirchir and others, and Kipchumba, and I think the president is, if he's not there, he'll be going. He's there to promote bringing those industries here and saying, look, you can come and set up. We have special economic zone. How many do you have in Mombasa alone? 2. How many do you have in Kilifi? We have. How many do we have in? We have. How many do we have in Makueni? We have. We have in Machakos. We have in Nakuru County. We have in
I think what
special
Ramogi
economic zones.
Is,
come and invest, and we have a favorable economic environment where you can invest.
Ramogi
We have cheap labor that we are going to export
Angalau,
to SCZ.
You would have even gone with one of those things that those industrial parks that you're talking about is actually making today.
They're not making. We have the industrial park.
The
we
park
have
itself.
We have Dongokundu. We want you to come and set up industry here.
Which industry?
We will facilitate you. Whatever you are producing, we'll facilitate you. Come and set up
I think
here.
one thing I agree with Eric on is this one. It is a beginning.
Oh God! You don't realize that Eric was being sarcastic.
I am not. I am not very serious.
I don't know. He's a polite guy to the government. He cannot be that sarcastic to Moses Kuria. It's a beginning.
What is it the beginning of?
It is a beginning of, for example,
industrialization
in terms of industrialization. And what he is saying, and I appreciate that, is that it creates an one-stop shop for example, a foreign investor to come and set up base. Okay. Now, with that said, we want to democratize the productive economy of this country, which means then that it is not so much about waiting with bated breath for the external investor to come and set up base. It is about how do we encourage this young person in Korogosho, for example, to produce earbuds, or to produce matchboxes. You know, how do we then come up
with... You've left out toothpicks.
Toothpicks. How do we empower this person in terms of policy, in terms of access to credit and access to capital, in terms of marketing, in terms of training? And I think that is the conversation that was missing. It was the missing link in this plan by the Ministry of Trade. And that's what made me feel uncomfortable, that this thing is more about marketing, but it leaves out the whole lot of production. And in terms of that policy as well, we need to think about taxes, because our tax policy is just out of control in terms... I run a small business, for example, and I am so taxed that I am forced every now and then to face the reality of losses. Because the government takes almost half of what we make. And so the same problem, assuming I was a manufacturer, would be more compounded, because manufacturers need more capital than services.
Iko hustler fund ya kusupport unasema ambayo itafanya huyo
now you're being sarcastic
ajenge toothpicks. Let's take a break. Odhiambo Ramogi is an economist. He's from Elim Capital. We are talking about Kenya's economy and also looking at foreign exchange pressure in the Forex market. What's happening? Odhiambo, you've flown Emirates?
Oh yes.
When you've gone there and come back with the dollars.
My friend, it's a place you want to dwell a little longer.
Tell us.
I only mention in passing.
As you hear, if you want to dwell a little longer on a flight, fly Emirates. Fly better with Emirates. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
Fly Emirates first and business class and look forward to a journey that's as incredible as your destination. Start your holiday with delicious fine dining, impeccable service, and comfort that's out of this world. Sip drinks in our A380 onboard lounge on flights from Dubai and beyond. Watch a movie and drift into a restful sleep in flatbed seats. Treat yourself to Emirates First and Business.
Highs of 28 and we'll see highs of 31. In a sunny Nakuru, it's 18 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 27 and highs of 28 in Eldoret, where it is sunny at 20. It's 28 and mostly sunny in Mombasa, highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 32 as well. In Malindi, it's 24 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 32 and highs of 33 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 22. It's 22 and sunny out in Kampala, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 32 out in Dar es Salaam at 28. It's 19 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 33 in a partly sunny Lagos at 27. It's 25 and cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 33, and we'll see highs of 22 out in Beijing today. 3 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 8, and we'll see highs of 8 in a rainy and snowy London at 2. It's 6 degrees and clear still Sunday night in New York, coming into Monday, highs of 12 and lows of 1.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right, so inching closer and closer to freedom on Waiyaki Way today. Don't forget, Red Hill Link Road has been showing you guys, I'm here to help. Whatever that was happening between Kangemi and Westlands seems to be, over now, so that's great. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, a little bit of traffic still left. We get out of traffic hour in no time from now. Looking a little bit better on Joko Road. Lunga still deciding whether Monday morning will be easy after 10, so we'll wait for her to do that. In the meantime, you can come off of Outer Ring in the other direction and come out on Mombasa Road. So those are options for you. SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the morning, and let's keep Monday moving.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Conversation continues with Odhiambo Ramogi, economist, in the studio. Ramogi, you've said there's this rumor that's been going around, and we all hear the rumor that maybe two things. One, maybe this is a deliberate release of the shilling to face the vagaries, so that then we can earn more from the little exports that we're having. Okay. The other one has been, maybe this is actually finally the shilling going to where it should have gone last year, but that this situation has just been managed for so long. This is actually where the shilling should have been anyway, because of the prevailing circumstances and economic situation.
Eric, can I add something to what you're saying?
Add.
If you were to take that thinking and that logic to its eventual conclusion, could we then say that this status that we supposedly have of a middle income, what is it again?
Middle income country.
Country. That whatever configuration and whatever economic maths we performed to take us to that level was false to begin with. Because how can we be in that position that we claim to be in, and yet everything about us tells us that we're a poor third world banana republic struggling? How do you marry the two?
Well, for the record and for avoidance of doubt, we are not poor. We are just poorly managed.
We are not a banana. We are a republic.
Not a banana.
Yeah, so we are not poor.
We are not.
No, we are not. A GDP of over 10 trillion, really. I mean, we are even the richest in the region if you are comparing yourself bananas to oranges. But we are not poor. What we are is poorly managed, because the little you have then is being extracted by a few. Because there is the political angle of it, and I was trying to avoid politics as much as I could. that a few people, the people who import, actually very senior politicians, the people who avoid investing and waiting until maize grows and maybe expose that maize to the risks of diseases. The politicians don't have that patience. They come into power, they say duty-free importation of maize.
They import.
And they import.
They make a couple of billions.
And they're okay.
Window.
And so those billions going into their pockets are actually supposed to be for Kenyans. So we are not poor. We are just poorly managed.
Do you know why we're a banana republic, sir?
Wow.
Republics that are not associated with that particular fruit have order. When people talk about ensuring that the economy grows, they actually grow the economy. The things that are said are done, or you see a semblance of it. When it is just said and the complete opposite happens, this thing you're saying, governance, my friend, that is the clearest indication that we are poor. Because if you can't realize your potential, what are you? You are always a country with potential, but where is it? And then we are comparing ourselves with our poorer cousins who are our neighbors. How on earth can that be a good comparison?
It's a good comparison because at least it tells you where you are.
No, but if you ask me, it stunts you. It stunts you completely because all the time, rather than you striving for that thing which you ought to do, you keep saying, well, at least I'm better than this person who is not down in the ground. Come on. It cannot be the benchmark for which you use to progress.
It is far away from benchmarking. It's just a comparison. But let me respond to the whole issue of does the fact that we have poor governance allude to the fact that we are poor? No. You see, if, for example, and allow me to use a crude example of children whose father died but left wealth, and then someone, a trustee, comes and mismanages that does not mean that those children are poor. Actually, it's just that...
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. No. if you can't access what was left for you, what are you? You're poor.
You're wealthy.
No, you're not.
But you're just not accessing
No.
it.
Well,
Thank you. And at some point, you
will
probably be able to access it. And
Ramogi,
the problem is governance.
Ramogi.
The problem is the trustee.
Yes, the problem is the trustees. Let's sort that issue with the trustee as opposed to beating ourselves.
Okay, if we go with your argument, Ramogi, and say that the problem is the trustee, how do you have an everlasting situation of poor trustee management, as in all the time your trustee is in a poor state? So what are you? You have the potential to be better forever?
You see, I think what you're saying...
I'm just a humble economist.
What you're saying, Ndu, is basically addressing what you raised earlier.
Yes.
That thinking stunts you. You are wealthy, just that you have a poor trustee managing your wealth.
It's like the dog who looks in the mirror and puts a mop on his head and says, I'm a lion.
No, if you accept that you are wealthy and it's a trustee who is the problem, then you're dealing with the issue. If you sit back and say, but me, I'm poor.
Yes.
You are giving the trustee all the leeway to actually continue eating the wealth and looking back at you and you see, we are poor.
Actually, in this case, I'm encouraging the trustee just do what they're supposed to do.
Don't encourage the trustee, fire the trustee.
Eric, do you know what puts spade to your argument? Is that these people whom we're referring to as poor don't have that mindset. Our biggest export is not government controlled. It's called labor. It's called human resource. And it's profitable because it is our hugest foreign exchange earner. What then happens at foreign exchange when it's brought back home? So it isn't as though the so-called Mwananchi doesn't understand. They've understood. And they're doing something about it. But now, when it comes to all this lovely talk about wanting to be an export centered country, focused country, we have simple pockets of industry in this country that not only are profitable, but have been there for the longest time. Like, say, the edible oil industry, for example. All right? At 60% production, they're able to meet the needs of the country. Countries that we keep referring to, the reason why they are where they are is their government has direct support for those industries, and they even given favorable conditions against would-be imports. Ours is the complete opposite. The imports are given priority over our own local industries. When I say the government seems to be working against, yes. So does it not you look at what is said, what is happening, what is being done, does it not point to that?
Let me say this with all humility. Okay. I fear there is a big difference between the Ruto politicians and the Ruto economists. I am able to read and interpret what the economists are trying to do. What the politicians are trying to do, however, is just out there.
And kindly tell us what the economists are trying to do and the vehicle through which they're going to make this happen. Unfortunately,
the vehicle the politician has,
isn't it?
Yes.
So, what are the economists trying to do that we hope and knock on wood and pray that it will actually come to fruition?
The economists drafted the manifesto that focused on agriculture and MSMEs. The economists want production to be pushed up and investment, significant investment in the two sectors. The economists want us to encourage exports, whether by allowing the shilling to free fall or by in fact devaluing it intentionally. The intention is noble. Let's encourage exports. The economists are saying, all right, let's have some money to support young people to do business. He said, hustler fund. The politicians implementing the ideas that the economists have are doing it all wrong. For example, that money, if we took 50 billion and we called 10 banks into one room and we told them, we have 50 billion, you guys are in this lending business, and we want you to lend out 150 billion. Because the guarantee system works in that you can guarantee up to around a third of the whole amount. Do you know 150 billion shillings in this economy, just circulating, you and someone else are able to access this money to do small business, would make a huge difference, as opposed to 50 billion focusing mostly on the consumptive economy and not the productive economy. And so the implementation framework is very different. The politicians are importing, instead of, by practice, you lower taxes when inflation is high. You lower taxes so that you manage those prices and you make sure that people are able to access these things affordably. Now, instead of lowering the taxes that are good for everybody, like, for example, VAT, some people just said, let's import duty-free items.
And then it will be cheaper in the market.
And then it will be cheaper in the market. And so a few importers took advantage of what was actually meant for the general public. And so there's a big difference between the Ruto economists and the Ruto politicians. And I think it will cause us problems in the long run. And let's hope that His Excellency will recognize that.
What would it take to actually stabilize the shilling? Because it's on a free fall. It is dropping like a shilling to the dollar a day.
Yeah.
What would it take to stabilize it?
No, I think I like the idea to consider barter trade, especially around fuel and some of the food items. I know it sounds very rudimentary. It feels like we are back in the 18th century. But it has been tried. Russia has tried it. Several other countries are now doing business with them in terms of barter trade. Donald Trump pushed the known world as it is today into attempting barter trade. And so that is a right direction. But we need to do more in terms of lowering the demand of the shilling. I think we need to go back to some of those lenders and tell them, look, gentlemen, we need a bit more time just to review some of
restructure our loans.
Yes, I think that would help us to manage the demand on the shilling. But at the same time, these are short-term solutions. The longer-term solutions is we need production, we need exports, we need more tourism, we need dollars. And we are not going to do that by, for example, chasing out investors like some people are trying to do in the country. We need to invest in agriculture, we need to invest in MSMEs, we need to have policies that encourage manufacturing, we need to lower the cost of energy so that then there can be production, and this government just needs to work.
Ramogi, as we're heading towards this new millennium, very many World Bank and other international financial bodies looked at Kenya in the Moi era, and they even predicted its collapse, simply because the maths didn't add up. Debt to GDP, all these things. And yet, the strangest thing about that era, strangest was this.
We're self-reliant.
You understood it perfectly. We were a net exporter to the region. In that very period, we were a net exporter. You needed to travel out of this country to go to play, and you'd find something which is manufactured in Kenya. But something else. There's something that they refer to as the hidden economy, what we call the Juakali industry, what we now call SMEs. It was an economy that was already strong then. It was vibrant. To move to the next level, where it wasn't just an SME, it was a medium size and to a bigger one, simply required mechanisms which we even had in place. We had ICDC, which just somehow went south, continued going south, and went south completely. Okay? We had Kenya Industrial Estates, which again, for agriculture, we had the Agricultural Finance Corporation. We had the mechanisms to ensure that the very thing you're saying now enabled people who worked and functioned in that part of the economy, the financial muscle to grow. Now, if established structures were watered down to the point where they became non-existent, in the books they exist, but one cannot see what it is that they are doing, it meant that that level, that aspect of our economy was left to struggle on their own, and they have continued to do so. There is a lot of talk about SMEs and the growth thereof, but if you look at the economy and what it is that sector represents, if that sector was grown, we'd have an economic revolution in the country. It's not complicated.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. In those days, we became self-reliant. Juakali industry goes as back early as even the 70s, and it has established itself over time. We have come up with structures. Of course, the bad governance of the Moi administration destroyed these structures and made them to be in the books, as you put. Today, I want to believe that we have a new constitution and that the governance of our country has at least made some significant steps so that we are not where we were in the Moi administration. But I also want to say the fact that the bigger contribution of the Kibaki administration was to avail credit, because you had containers that did not have credit. I mean, you have container without water, it's useless. So you have structures that and industries, but did not have money that is circulating and creating a multiplier effect. And so the biggest contributor of the Kibaki administration was credit. What Kibaki did is he got some very cheap loans from the international community and grants, and then avoided borrowing from banks. And the banks had now to come and beg the likes of CT Muga, please borrow from us, because they had a lot of money. And then the central bank at that time reduced the interest rate significantly so that you could access credit easily. That pushed the economy to a climax of 7% growth in the year 2007. And today, where we are, today, the biggest problem is access to credit. There is no money circulating in the economy. And you see, we had even started this conversation with when the government spends, that money is supposed to create activity and thereby GDP. But you see, the government spends and all this money goes to contractors somewhere in China. And so even vegetables these guys buy and bring into the country, because they bring their raw materials here and they bring their materials here and everything. And even their workers, they come. And so you have an expenditure budget of 3 trillion and a third of it is somewhere in a bank in China. And I think that is the bigger problem. We need that money to circulate locally.
I couldn't agree with you more.
How do we do that?
Not just
because
yes, go ahead.
And there's something that you said. You said, the economists are thinking the way you are thinking, but the politicians are not thinking the way the economists are thinking. Really?
What do you mean, really? It's my observation that the ideas are noble. And these gentlemen sit in a press conference. Man, some of the ideas they churn out of there. And then you hear 2 days later what they do. those ideas are put on the shelf. They were just good for the press conference.
But
so that's my observation.
Do you hear the same economists coming to say, no, this is not what we wanted?
Eric, even if it was me,
do you hear,
at
like,
State House,
from your own, because you hobnob with these fellow economists, do you hear them telling you, what the... is there growing frustration?
I will neither affirm nor disaffirm. But the fact of the matter is that the ideas are very different from the implementation. And that is going to be a problem.
Going to be?
Yes.
It is a problem, sir.
At least
it can only get worse, but it is already a problem.
Yeah. Because some of the things that these guys had actually set out to do and they are being implemented, yes, but in a very self-interest way. And that's the biggest problem of hiring politicians across board in cabinet. If you ask me, the Foreign Office should have had a bureaucrat. The Trade Office should have had a bureaucrat. Having politicians in some of these places is just too sensitive.
We experimented with that.
Look where it took us.
Yes, we experimented with that, and the results were disastrous.
Some of those who are in those offices are now in the advisory board.
Yes. We've experimented with this, putting bureaucrats in these positions, which are essentially political. Let's get back to the brass tacks. This particular government is talking about reversing some of the not so positive aspects of the Ndegwa Commission, which essentially legalized a conflict of interest. They allowed office holders and account holders to actually participate in business. Now, how crazy can anything get? Can it get any crazier?
Yes, the Ndegwa Commission, legally speaking, they were accurate, that you are at liberty to do whatever you want to do.
Really?
Wherever you want. It's a willing buyer, willing seller. We've had that statement. But in terms of general practice, in terms of just making our country to move forward, they were wrong. And I pray that this administration thinks about reversing that decision. I, however, don't expect my prayers to be answered in the immediate.
One of the things, though, that I often find puzzling is this attempt or this wish and this action of people wanting to be exceedingly wealthy, obnoxiously wealthy overnight. And some of them are people who, on the face of it, are fairly intelligent. How does it not occur to them that these very things, activities they want to be involved in, that if the economy grew and was bigger, there'd be a lot more for them to plunder? How can they not understand this?
They can see, concept? But they can also see time, okay?
I need to do this thing
Wait, you're saying it's your economy growing.
We wait for it to grow, we water it, it fruits, we pluck. No.
And by the time, for example, it's grown, it's someone else in office.
Yeah. Now. Anyway, thank you very much, Ramogi, for joining us today.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you. Come again soon. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday morning. Have a lovely day. We'll be back tomorrow. What's the date tomorrow?
7th.
Good morning. 8:10.